Hey, we're officially live and a little bit early compared to what the scheduled time was, but it's also a bit late for what the original scheduled time was. Sorry about the conundrum. The name's Adam.
I'm Imsit, and today we're talking about the Blood God.
Yeah, we're talking about Paralyzed Dogman.
Baal,
Yeah, that guy.
or what's some other blood gods?
His legs no worky good, so he gets angry and demands strawberry jam and crunchy bones. That's what happens when you skip leg day. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the Tome of Blood, which has some very lovely cover art of a person in this moment. They are euphoric. They need a fedora, honestly. Give them a neckbeard and fedora, and it's like in that moment I'm euphoric. Also, nice mouth crest on your chest, buddy. Holy shit. That
I, I, I love this with the Warhammer art where there's just tubes going in places that just don't make sense.
well, you need the tube in there because you need to put in the other stuff in there. Don't think about it. Chaos works in weird ways.
No, that's just chaos. That's just Warhammer.
Well, you see, we need those tubes for don't think about it. So here's also a lovely emblem of Khorne, just made out of skulls and blood. And a little bit of sinew, a little bit of screaming flesh. I really like that. The expression of this minotaur slash dog bull thing's head is pretty fitting. And there's another bit of lovely cover art of oh god, my brain is falling apart. What the hell type of demon's that again? I'm sorry, my brain.
Bloodletter,
Thank you. It's a bloodletter.
which is different from a blood crusher or a skull crusher or a blood master or a skull master.
Yeah, I thought it was one of those like I knew it wasn't one of the lesser demons. It just kind of like the name was escaping me. So blood can mean a lot of different things. For most, it's merely a biological fluid, a part of organic life. Those who see beyond the mundane know it's much, much more. Blood is energy, rage, and endless fury, but above all, blood is a source of power. Which, if you're wondering where that comes from in terms of like human belief, it's because it's low key always been thought that blood's kind of the source of your life force. Because if you bleed out too much, you don't live no more. And that kind of aspect is kind of why Khorne gains all of that power from bloodshed, because that energy has to go somewhere. You know, the thing keeping you going. So to see blood spilling from the bite of an axe is to offer sacrament to perhaps the first god to form in the impossible maelstroms of the warp. For wherever there is conflict and violence, there is Khorne. Because legitimately, Khorne Loki formed from I hit you with rock to end your life.
Technically, that was Drachnich.
Oh, really?
The so with the Horse Heresy, the demon that's in Abaddon's blade was apparently the first murder, at least the first human murder. Khorne comes out in the Middle Ages.
Oh yeah, I forgot that they low-key tied Khorne's awakening to Genghis Khan. Or Chinggis Khan,
Who,
I should say.
who is a demon prince?
Yes,
M-
in old lore, they mentioned quite often that Genghis Khan was a demon prince. They still hint at it, but they're a lot more vague because, they don't want to get caught with what they did with Araby again.
Well, there's also the fact that it was a warlord who killed a lot of people in the second millennium.
To be
So
fair, that could also be Tamerlane.
that could be Hitler.
I was mentioning Tamerlane because he was also
Yeah,
known as a Scourge of God.
that's right. Um, but it could be anyone.
It could also be Hong Ji Quan, the guy who caused the Taiping Rebellion.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, if you're wondering, that one had a higher kill count than World War One, or matched World War One in its kill count. Also, technically, if you really think about it, as maximum shitpost, you could also have it be Stalin or Mao Zedong. Or Pol Pot, actually.
Well, the thing is, it's not in war, and that's the big thing. Khorne wants war. He doesn't want
Oh,
You
he
know,
doesn't want the mechanized slaughter. Okay.
I mean, the mechanized slaughter I think is fine, but yeah, Pol Pot wasn't that much of a general.
Fair enough. Then again, neither was Hitler.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably is the con.
It was either Genghis Khan or Tamerlane, I think.
Oh,
It could also be one of the Ottoman sultans too, technically, if you think
you know what I
about it.
realized as a funny shitpost? Christopher Columbus as a demon prince of Nurgle.
That's pretty good. That's not bad. So
Imagine that in
yeah,
an Italian as a demon prince.
in his name, untold millions are slain each day, and their blood and skulls offered up in sacrifice. Because again, he's kind of the battle war murder god. He's kind of like one of the examples of that. So his worship is extremely popular. Not surprising. And it's divided into the following chapters: details about Mr. Paralyzed Dogman himself, the warriors who worship him and also skip leg day, much to their surprise and rage. How you do large scale combat, which that's always been something that the Fantasy Flight games struggled with, because only War kind of plays around with that somewhat since you're playing Imperial Guard, which it's kind of interesting. It's their attempt to kind of bridge the gap between the minis games and like larger scale play. We saw a little bit of that, I think, with Tome of Excess as well.
Yeah. Which it's kind of ironic considering this is kind of how Games Workshop started out. Like the first editions were it was somewhat of a role playing game and a skirmish game.
Somewhat, not quite. I would say Dark Heresy, not so much, but I would
Uh,
say Only
oh no,
War definitely.
I didn't mean dark. I meant like first edition Games Workshop.
Oh yeah, I don't know necessarily about Rogue Trader, but I can tell you the first couple of editions of Warhammer Fantasy kind of didn't know what the hell it was going to be, because it kind of varied between actual RPG and mini skirmish game.
Well, yeah. Well, when the game recommends having a GM for your skirmish game, it's more of a role playing game.
That is true, Squirrel Killer. He doesn't care how the blood flows, so you can literally death by cube. You can put them in the cubes of death. Oh, and if you're wondering, Chapter 4 is actually an adventure hook. All of the tomes have an adventure hook at the end of the book.
I believe, and themed around the god and
That's a
planets.
bloodthirster.
Which one?
That the big red guy. That's a bloodthirster.
Is he the one killing the Vestroyan?
Yes, it is.
No, that's a blood letter. My
Blood
mistake.
letter. Oh, bloodthirster's the thing I saw up there.
Yes, that is a bloodthirster.
If you're wondering, I tend to get those two confused because of how they sound similar and look kind of similar. That is something I have to give credit to Khorne. He's kind of like your most standard style of demon, which I think makes him look iconic, but also sometimes because of the names of how his demons are listed, I am going to mangle them.
Uh, do not look at the roster for the Blades of Khorne for Age of Sigmar. Everything is a variation of skull and blood.
Oh, I'm gonna forget all that by the time that happens. Like you could show me the entire roster, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's Pikachu.
Is that a Bloodstoker, Blood Sector? Oh, it's Blood Master.
They are aware
It-
that besides calling something blood, you can use words like ichor or life. You could do like I don't know, life layer.
well, that's for your armies.
Hmm.
That's for your war bands.
That's unfortunate because that makes it a lot easier to mangle and confuse which ones are in your head. So, chapter 1, the good old guy who skipped leg day until his legs no longer worked. Hence why he wasn't able to get Kane. He was able to throw him, but he wasn't able to get him. So the Dark Gods of Chaos are beings that, yeah, we already know how powerful he is. So anyway, Bloods and Skulls. Across the universe, in every galaxy, on every planet, and in every moment of time, conflict has steered the course of events. It is conflict that has propelled one species into a position of dominance over another and consigned one man to oblivion while another's triumphed. Mainly because life itself requires some level of murder, some level of death.
So why not
Because,
worship the god of death
yeah,
or the god of war?
because if you think about it, like from the very first stage of just something as simple as cattle eating plants, the cows are killing an animal. Oh, well, not an animal. They're killing a vegetable. You are
Teeth
causing,
crush.
yeah.
They're saying teeth crush, consume. The acid of your stomach burns the burns the remnants alive. It's all violent. It's all war
Only
on a
plant. If you
cellular
really
level.
think about it, only plants, and even then, plants it can actually be predatory. If the nutrients get low, there are species of plants that legitimately hunt and murder and kill insects. They also can produce a variety of interesting poisons just to get things to fuck off. Funnily enough, if you're wondering why some plants are spicy, that is legitimately a go fuck yourselves, get away from us signal. Meanwhile, us humans are like, oh, that tastes funny. Let's eat more of it.
So it's not just the humans that follow the Gorsto path. Khorne can be followed by orcs, Nakuli, the Rakul, pretty
Yeah,
much anyone.
it's just the thing is that with orcs, they're pretty aware of not being orky enough. It's just among chaos, it's one of the easier gods to trick orcs with, just because you can kind of guise him as as either
Yeah.
Gork or Mork.
The problem is that the orcs want to fight. They
Yeah.
don't want to just kill and the blood flow.
Yes and
They
no.
want it to
They
fight
just
forever.
want more fight. They don't really care about the bloodshed. They just care about beating a motherfucker down.
And there are those that unwittingly end up worshiping Khorne. Gangs fighting for territory, even assassins. Um, I believe even technically clerks that get into arguments technically can influence Khorne.
Mainly because in a lot of cases, there's two types of murder. There is the cold, calculated variant, where you're trying to dispassionate yourself, and then there's the passionate heat of the moment. Khorne is much more of the latter.
Except if you get too obsessed with perfecting that kill. Then it's Slanesh.
So, Blood for the Blood God, the fundamental conflicts that drive mortal life sustain him on a base level. So, essentially, as long as there is conflict, Khorne can never go away, and this is kind of low key why the Emperor's plan would never have worked.
I mean, if they shut them off,
True, if you basically completely reorder cosmologically the flow of life itself, you might.
I believe that's actually what he's trying to do. He was trying to turn humanity into basically versions of
That's
him.
what they're retconning him into, and I completely dismiss and ignore that aspect because it is dog shit, personally. Oh yeah, plants are horrendously violent for things that barely move. There's actually entire species of plants whose sole thing is to parasitize other plants and eat them from within.
Yum.
No, seriously, there's a variety of species of tree that require growing on another tree to survive and drain nutrients from. Same with
Hmm.
ferns and a variety of others. Now, sometimes it's symbiotic, but in a lot of cases, it's haha, I'm stealing your nutrients. So, no, technically, even if you got rid of animals, plants themselves could probably sustain Khorne because it is a chemical battle to the death over territory. So what I'm trying to say is that if you really wanted to, you could have like a daemon of Khorne living on a planet that's just grass, and
Actually,
he'd
this would be
probably
interesting
survive.
to do Sylvaneth or Treemen version Khorne worshippers.
Yeah, if you want some weird bullshit, look up plants. Besides looking into the deep ocean, look up plants. They are interesting to see. Also, sometimes it's really cool to watch plants in fast motion because you can definitely see that they're alive and movement and move in their own ways, and it's kind of creepy. The Green Man is an avatar of Khorne. Yeah.
So, describing the face of Khorne, I mean, we do see next page somewhat of his image, but obviously being a god. we kind of don't know his actual form.
That's why I go with the paralyzed dog man as a shitpost, because he's almost always seen on his throne.
I mean, the other things, he wears an armor of brass. He has a mighty sword. Uh,
I find it weird that it's brass specifically that is his metal of choice.
hmm.
Because brass traditionally that's a much softer metal. It's actually weirdly enough used in instruments much more. Bronze is the traditional metal of weaponry.
I have a feeling it might be a color thing. It's sort of a red and a yellow. Then maybe
Probably
like a red and a brown.
because yeah, bronze is a little too dark.
What's funny is that the account of his face comes from Adrasian's knowledge most foul, and several Administratum scribes have been purged under the suspicion of lending to Adrasian in his quest to collect knowledge. So I don't know if he's a Khorne worshiper or not, but I'm imagining an undercover scribe cult worshipping Khorne.
That actually leads me to some really fun things that you can definitely do with corn cults that I find fun. One of the more interesting ones that I've done is actually a farmer's cult that uses the harvest season as the time to basically sow the bloody harvest. Basically, during fertilization seasons, they would basically dismantle and rip apart people to fertilize the fields. Which you could do some interesting you could do interesting agricultural cults. You mentioned administratum. Legitimately, yeah, you could do a you could have it you can have a high level cult whose whole gimmick is just sending people to die in meat grinders of pointless worth.
So, Jimmy, technically you could say Khorne's the most powerful. However, none of them are the most powerful. They're all fighting each other in the great game.
The two
So
who
he,
most often have the upper hand are Khorne because there is only war in the galaxy in the area, and Nurgle because, to quote another series, Valar Morghulis, all must die.
but then again, you could have those forces end up being really obsessed, and that leads to Slaanesh being dominant, but it could all be a trick by Tzeentch, or, as of recently with Age of Sigmar, it could just be the rats.
So yeah,
Because,
that is another thing. Like every murder doesn't necessarily power corn. If you decided to go all Dexter, haha, I'm going to enjoy ripping you apart. That's Slanesh. If it's I'm going to fucking destroy this guy and you do it with a elaborate murder scheme, that's Zinch. Like murdering an abusive husband for their inheritance money, that's a Zinchian plot too.
or if you just want to ruin things, it's the Great Horned Rat, because he's now technically elevated to a god.
Mainly because they got scared of using Slanesh too much.
No, remember, he's still missing in Age of Sigmar.
Translation: we can't use the sex god because otherwise we can't sell it to children.
Have you seen the new miniatures? They aren't shying away.
Recently, probably recently, but I could have swore early on they sure as hell did.
They have a daemonette using a man's nerve endings as a harp.
True, but that's only after a hiatus of using Slanesh at all.
Ah, that was like 2017, I think.
Yeah, but that's where most of the negative flow on Age of Sigmar comes from. Because it murdered something to exist.
Ah,
Remember, that's the biggest problem with Age of Sigmar, even if sales are picking up. That is what turned off a lot of fans. It killed something to exist. If it came about in its own way or was treated as an alternate event, it would never have gotten any of the shit it got. It would have only been criticized for what it initially was criticized for, which was, if I remember right, I think everything was way too overbalanced, or you basically can only do certain schema that would just be
uh,
like the meta. Like it was pretty simplistic, if I recall.
it was too expensive. They were focusing on using big blocks of armies, and it just was not selling well. They weren't really pushing it, and that
Well,
led it to being
also from
canned.
what I remember, the initial army composition that you bring into a battle usually was too samey. I think that was another issue, at least in terms of competitive play.
I mean, I know from my experience, I tried playing it, and it was just the rules I think were even more complex than 40k at the time, and that
That
did
yeah,
turn
yeah.
me
No,
off.
no, no. That's what it was. It was that the rules were both complex, but also they didn't actually explain everything correctly. If I remember right, there were a lot of issues with the initial rule set, and it took like the second edition to fix that.
Oh wait, Age of Sigmar? Or, I was talking 8th edition fantasy.
No, Age of Sigmar. I was talking about Age of
Oh,
Sigmar initially
Age of
having some
Sigmar.
roughness.
Age of Sigmar. It was a free for all. There were no points. There were uh just it wasn't really clear what the fuck was going on in terms of the setting. It was a shit show. They cleaned it up second edition.
That's what I meant. Like I remember it had a very rough launch, and that was the other thing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be frank. That's where most of my bad blood comes from. It killed fantasy, which that's always going to be an issue against it. That's always going to be a bit of a shadow over it. But just straight up, first edition sucked. Just you killed something that people really liked and replaced it with this dog shit. That's some EA level fucking game management right there, you know? Actually, if you really think about it, it's kind of like an EA moment. Because people who are like, oh no, EA games aren't that bad. Yeah, you bought it a year after the game came out when they patched it all. Also,
yeah,
yeah, too expensive. Every mini war game ever. Yeah, straight up. That's kind of the problem with minis in general. Some are designed for smaller skirmishes. War Machines and Hordes actually had a resurgence for a while because it kind of favored that sort of thing.
yeah.
But
War Machine, BattleTech, honestly, World War II stuff. A lot is going for skirmish. Games Workshop is half skirmish and then half big armies. But that's besides the point. Let's talk more about the realm of brass and blood.
yeah, because Khorne is a very simple guy, so obviously,
So
once you know his Ken, you kind of know what his thing is.
it's volcanoes, violence, forges, and war.
Every 80s metal album that you can think of, where there's the rocky, windswept plateaus with screams in the air, skulls on the ground, a fountain of blood, bone pillars. It's like every 80s it's like every 80s metal album.
There's the blood rivers, the blood islands, the blood streams, the blood forests, the blood moons.
Yeah, it's very much like how the Space Wolves, everything is wolf, everything is blood. Or
Very,
bone,
very,
or brass.
I mean, the one thing is he has the forges where they make all the stuff. Daemon engines, his chariots, the collars, the blades,
Which I
and
think kind of makes his realm a little more interesting since there's almost like a thriving industry of sorts. I think Zinch's will also be pretty interesting to talk about because of how ever changing it is.
yep.
No,
Then
seriously,
there's the
Zinch's realm is a fucking nightmare. You would constantly have mental breakdowns just existing in it.
and then there's the blood pits.
Yep.
Oh, I do like this. There's this log that they have, a little narrative of this uh, guy at a forge world, and it turns out that they're running out of fuel to produce missiles, and the other forge basically said, "Uh, "Yeah, maybe it's your faith that's lacking. Pray to the machine god for guidance. We're not going to help you." And then they start coming in an idea to maybe steal that fuel. But in the meantime, rivers of blood. So many blood rivers. The lakes of slaughter, and then finally the brass fortress.
Oh, by the way, one of the best things I like about that log scrap entry, amidst the ruins on the Forge world.
Oh, and here's the other thing. You know what day it starts on?
Day 8.
8 is Khorne's favorite number.
Also, keep in mind that the day before that destructive event went, day before, day 23. Add one more, 24 divisible by 3, 8.
And then you have the brass fortress with thousands of flesh hounds patrolling the skull yard. Yes, the skull yard.
Yep. Also, the final log entries of the Imperial Navy captain. This is another one.
Tomorrow the engines of the fleet will sputter out, drenched in the blood of 12 billion Khornians once the battle is joined. I will not die in a service to a long-dead false god. I will serve Khorne, as will all those aboard my ship who are willing. Even those who do not join us will ultimately serve the blood god, as their spilled life essence will slake his thirst, if only for a moment.
Yeah,
I believe his plan is to run that ship into the planet.
it is. It straight up is. But by the way, I find it interesting that I find it really interesting from the Navy captain that the reason he fell was actually more to despair, which is more of a Nurgle thing. But it does tell you that the approaches aren't necessarily guaranteed based on what you're feeling.
Well, yes, I mean, in fear, you might just accept whatever is given to you. As he heard his soon-to-be master command, serve me or share their end. But now
See,
that he's corrupted, he doesn't care.
so yeah, here's the thing, not Nito, I do agree with you. Numerology is pretty stupid usually. It's cute when you're dealing with evil deities like the Chaos Gods, but uh, oh god, don't get me started on all of the bullshit numerology nonsense that are based around the pyramids of Giza. One of the
It's
dumbest ones is that its latitude arrangement, which is where it is in relation to the equator, is very close to the number for the speed of light. Does that matter? No. The Egyptians did not use metric because it
and wait,
wasn't invented for another 2,000 plus years.
what is the speed of light?
I don't fucking remember.
It does it have a number divisible by 3 in it?
Hell if I know.
It
All I
it
do know
probably
is that Jacksonville, Florida also has the same latitude value, so it also is built by ancient aliens or whatever bullshit they want to gurgle.
and it's all divisible by 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 6 plus 6 is the devil, but divided by that, it's God.
See, that's the thing about number games is you can invent whatever nonsense you want. That's
See,
why
not
Khorne's approach to that is just hit with stick until it stops moving.
you see 911, 911. That means the police did it.
You're joking, but I remember someone actually saying that the NYPD helped the government set it up.
So, moving on.
The Lake of Slaughter, which is where many of these people should go.
Yep.
The Throne of Skulls, because yeah, at the very center where
Though, funny enough, it said if Khorne should rouse him from his throne and personally go to war against the gods, his favorite blade would end them all in one mighty sweep. But it would really fuck up the warp.
that sounds like that sounds like a cultist cope, honestly. Doesn't that sound like cultist coping?
Well, it's because of the great game. They the gods know about the great game. They know they'll never win, but they're not really sentient, so they don't really care.
I feel like it's cultist coping, and he can't get out of the chair.
Well, no, he did get off the chair once when the changeling put a bunch of nurglings under it, and it released gas.
I imagine afterwards he fell on his face and screamed, "I have fallen and can't get up," and then
I
killed every one of his cultists who heard that, and every one of his daemons too.
I think that's when he threw out Scarbrand.
That sounds about right.
But moving on, so he has beyond the bastion stair and the 8 iron pillars. He watches over his minions from the throne of skulls.
I still feel like I still feel like it's a cultist cope. Like, oh yeah, you could totally end it all if you wanted to. Nah, you can't get up. The only time you got up, you suffered a fucking embolism and fell over, dude.
So his servants, we have the daemons, and we have his bloodthirsters, of which I believe there are 8 by the power of 8 million of them.
Which I think is a little too specific on the numerology. You forgot the time Khorne fought Slanesh for Kane's soul. Oh yeah, that's where he broke his delicate ankles, I bet. I broke my ankles. Now I have to sit on this chair for eternity. Just like this guy who's a corpse on a throne. Hmm.
Wait, what if that means they're the same?
That would be hilarious.
Khorne is the Emperor. The God Emperor is Khorne.
If you really think about it, he's responsible for basically humanity reuniting and causing the largest fucking war in its existence.
No, I think the Dark Age still pales in comparison.
The difference is this one's lasted for 10,000 years and also led to, remember, the orcs getting their shit together and carving an even larger bloody swath that required one of the last of the Primarchs to detonate themselves.
Oh, you're right.
Now, I'm not
Oh, but
saying that the Emperor was an avatar of an evil dogman here, but
but by the way, so continuing with that Forge world, there's more on that story. On day 30, inspiration came to me last night. I prayed to the Amasai for guidance but received none. As I left the temple, I stumbled, cutting my remaining flesh hand on a bit of jagged rock. A drop of blood fell from my wound to a holy oil canister. Watched the blood spread out and then become absorbed into the oil. The flame being fed by the oil flared briefly as the blood was burned away. After that, the flame appeared to have changed color, taking on a slightly more reddish hue. I have my answer. Blood. The scrap code demands sacrifice. Through blood offerings shall we prevail.
I like that. I like that they kept going with it. By the way, here's
Oh,
the funniest thing about this. Since a lot of the technology that the setting of 40k uses has organic components, this might not actually be bullshit. Remember, a lot of the computerization systems are actually organically grown neuron tissue.
yeah, but feeding it blood.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, you do need to sustain the organic components. You would need to supply it with oxygen and nutrients. Blood being would be your primary medium for it.
Khorne just sat around so long that his legs atrophied, and now he's too lazy to build them back up.
No, he can't. Like he can't because he can feel the deep vein thrombosis in those legs. If he gets up,
Well,
he ain't coming back again.
no, that's his next project. He's gonna make skull wheels. He's turning the throne to a wheelchair.
No. What's gonna happen is when the Emperor's corpse wakes up, it's gonna be the big reveal is it is Khorne using him as a puppet.
He just puts on a dog mask,
The Emperor puts on a dog mask.
and the
Well,
space wolves.
Think about it. That wasn't gold. It was brass. It was brass in the right components to make it look like gold.
Ah.
There's
So next up of his servants are obviously Daemon princes,
a lot of
then
those.
the heralds of Khorne, the bloodletters,
Yep,
and the
bloodletters and then bloodthirsters are the champions.
yep, and the fleshhounds,
Oh yeah, fleshhounds. Those ones are fun. I think yep, juggernauts too.
and the
Actually,
juggernauts.
in the evil campaign we had for Warhammer Fantasy, one of the boons of the dark gods that we got was a pet juggernaut for our Khornate.
Oh, he
For
survived.
he was a special needs Khornate who basically used his monkey D. Luffy rubber arm powers to punch it into submission.
Eh,
He we got pretty high powered bullshit.
Oh, and
I was playing a Chaos Dwarf with a fuck you Daemon cannon. It was great.
by the way, the story continues with that uh, guy, and you can see the writing getting a little bit more messed up
Yep.
as the blood starts working, and an explosion apparently destroyed one of the forges, killing hundreds.
Hmm.
Interesting. And where was his aid when our forge was depleted? So fuck him. What god would want such a weak servant? It is a question with an answer that cannot be calculated.
It's almost like he set up the explosion himself.
No, the Omnissiah prevailed. He was showing his weakness.
Also,
And
yes, there's a lot of mortal servants as well. A
yeah,
shitload of them.
the Chaos Space Marines, obviously the World Eaters. Because when you wire your pleasure center to be focused on adrenaline, and you're a super soldier, you might just start like killing.
And with the World Eaters, for example, they had an entire series of mechanized systems that plugged into the rage centers of the brain.
Um, oh, and they even add a few others. The Eighth Company of the Emperor's Wolves, which got infected by tainted blood and became the Blood Disciples. You have the
Yeah.
Crimson Sabers, who were haunted by their butchery of the butcher cults of Balathu, and that's how they became the Crimson Slaughter, even though they're not really
Imagine.
corn related.
I think it's amusing that, oh, how do we drown out the horrible things we had to do? By out horrifying our nightmares. Hmm.
Yeah, that is actually what they do, because they're not, the noises are loud. Hey, if we kill somebody, the noises stop.
Hmm.
Now they're back, so well, obviously you start killing.
You know the saddest shit about this actually reminds me of an alternate heresy that I kind of worked on. That is kind of what happened to Conrad Curse. Basically, in that timeline, he fell to Khorne because, hey, guess what? Your premonitions go away if you go against a guy who fucking hates Psyker. If you go with a guy who hates fucking Psychery.
Don't mind if I do. But then you have obviously human warbands.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them because, hey, guess what? Sometimes after a while, if you start having to kill people either to survive or you're in a war, there's always that type of person who likes that or who basically can't stop because the voices tell them to because of the nightmares or just you need to keep going because otherwise what the fuck did you just do?
Uh, yep. Then there's the blood cults. There's the mutants, and there's an interesting conversation with a feral human tribe. Oh, and oh, interesting. A Drazian. This is the guy who made that heretical text.
Oh neat.
Yeah, saying, "Who is this master? Our master dwells in a place of fire and skulls. His rivers are blood, and his forests are bones." Like, our enemy is through the words in the Skyplane tribe. We will kill their prime hunter and offer his blood to he who hunts at the head of the pack. And then we have
This is something I actually really like about Tome of Blood because one of the things that Khorne usually gets neglected by, especially in 40k, is he's also, besides a god of war, he's also somewhat of a god of huntsman because that's still bloodshed.
yeah. Actually, again, bring up Age of Sigmar. There's a warband that wants to act like Karanek, his head uh, fleshhound. So yeah, they're huntsmen,
Yeah,
but more beastly.
it's actually one of the aspects that people tend to forget about.
But then we have, I guess,
Also, as a shitpost, here's something you can do in 40k and it wouldn't be completely haram. If he ever wanted to use Stromfells from fantasy, you could totally make him a daemon of Khorne because of the whole shark angle and piracy and taking and
mm,
murder.
Cornate pirates. I like it.
Yeah. So Rage and War, this is a big thing about this. Perversely, the lies of the Imperium please the ruinous powers too often to work and often work to benefit their ends. Because hey, guess what? If you believe in a deity, sometimes you can corrupt that deity.
This is how, yeah, corruption is done through. You know,
Because if you change the rituals, you can change the effect somewhat, like you saw with like what you saw with that tech priest.
as he says, or as it says here, a governor of place-stricken city might pray for a cure, but that may beseech Nurgle. He might seek out forbidden texts,
Hmm.
which favor Zinch. He might come to believe he is not enjoying the benefits of his station, and he's depraved, that feeds Slaanesh. But if he turns to a more martial path, he would never need to fear that his sick people would turn on him, that his rivals would prevent his advancement, or that anything or anyone he wishes to claim could escape his grasp. He would not let the weak among his people die and arm himself to put down any revolt the citizenry might undertake. Murder competing politicians, sweep away all those who would cast him aside.
Yep, because that's the thing about Khorne, and that's kind of why he's an interesting deity because what you see is what you get with him. The amount of subtlety that Khorne is willing to do is the bare minimum to allow him to murder as much as he can to get their blood and their skulls.
Yep.
It
Oh, and
is
more about
the bare minimum.
and more about the tact stuff. Turns out 7 other forges have has suffered the same fate as Sigma. So 8 of them have fallen,
Hmm.
and they're coming to their forge. So there's a new voice that this tech priest is hearing, because the Omnissiah is not talking to him, and it was, I believe, saying to let them burn in hellfire.
Yep.
And the eight had hellfire missiles, all destroyed them.
I was strong. Now we are strong.
And
Yeah, that's an
I,
interesting take. A tech priest that has fallen to Khorne.
yep,
That's an interesting one. I kind of like that.
yep.
No,
And
this is easily one of my favorite little sub stories that they've put in one of these books. I like that.
and so obviously, Corn favors champions who are strong, who might even lead from the front, who do the greatest deeds.
Yeah, if you're a Khorne, you kind of throw yourself in, screaming YOLO, because that's kind of what he looks for.
Even if you are, let's say, a captain of commander of a vehicle or of a starship,
You have to
you
drive a bit closer so you can hit them with your sword.
drive closer or just ensure that there is some sort of destruction, that you're not simply admiring from afar.
Oh, by
That
the way, if you're wondering, in terms, since they do briefly describe about the relations of the gods, I mean it's kind of well known, but they all kind of squabble with each other. But funnily enough, the god that Khorne kind of hates the most is Slanesh rather than Tzeentch.
Yeah, because he's a pansy.
It's more that he turns what should be just what it is into a game, a mockery essentially. Like, no, you're collecting you're collecting their life essence. You're taking blood and skulls, and you're trying to turn a game out of that. Fuck you. Fuck
Actually,
you.
my favorite story about that, I guess Slanesh gave him some sort of object, that Corn is, obsessed with, but because it's from his hated god, he destroys it.
Yep.
But because it's something he's obsessed with, he builds it back up again.
He intentionally destroyed the gift simply so that he could rebuild it himself through the blood forges. Yes.
No, no, it's more sort of like it's a curse in a way.
Not surprising. They all hate each other. They're very spiteful.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, and
when I say he hates Slanesh the most, that doesn't mean he also doesn't despise Tzeentch. He hates him because, again, he's not the subtle one. He's the type that his cult tends to be very blatant and open about what they are, because otherwise you're being a pansy. You're being a weak bitch. That's the sort of shit is more Tzeentch's profile.
and
And
there's
one of
more.
the lesser known aspects of Khorne is, in a twisted way, he's the chaos god equivalent of justice. If you really think about it, because his whole thing is going against people who. One of his things is going against schemers and people who fucked you over.
Now you do so by ripping their head off, but
Yeah,
I
it's
mean
a
that.
really fucked up take. It's very interesting.
Oh, by the way, the logs continue from the attack priest on day 40, divisible by 8. He says, "No, this is day 1, my first day, a new time. The weak machine god has departed from this place. Service to him was a lie from the start. A silent god that does not answer the prayers of his followers is no god at all.
You know, you could
I
have
kn-
gone to Mars and talked to your god. He's there dreaming still.
They don't know that. I also believe the Omnissiah is an all machine, so they would not.
Yep.
Um, I now know where my devotion should be directed. A wound born from an accident revealed the truth to me. It is a truth that has been with me since I was formed. My blood has a purpose, greater than the body that houses it. Each drop has the power to change the course of events. This knowledge gives me strength and resolve. I now know his name. I give thanks to the blood god for showing me the truth, and pledge myself to his service. Glory to Khorne. Log entries end. Warder acclaimed Kellenfor ongoing.
I bet he feels like a big idiot replacing so much of his body, since that's less blood inside of himself.
Well, that's the point. The blood in his body is useless. But if he can sacrifice his blood, and perhaps the blood of others, it will satiate his god.
Also, yeah, Khorne does tolerate Nurgle the most, since they have the least opposition in terms of what they do.
But he's smelly.
I mean, they still don't like each other. Again, there's a point where his throne was infested with Nurglings out of spite. They do go to war over sort of stuff like that. It's just compared to the other two, it's much more friendly by comparison.
And then, of course, Khorne is very much favored in the Long War because, well, when you have super soldiers that are designed to kill, they will naturally gravitate towards the god that will help them kill better.
Yeah, that's the thing. Khorne, much like Tzeentch, this is actually one of the few things both Tzeentch and Khorne agree on. They want the war to continue as long as they can. Because that allows the most amount of blood to be shed for Khorne, and Tzeentch, it allows him the most chances to have fun and basically fuck around. With Nurgle, it's more of a, I will win one of these days. Well, with Slaanesh, it's more along the lines of,
Getting his thrills off.
yeah. And it depends on what exact moment and non-moment, and also every moment, but never every moment, but not moment, in time, which doesn't exist, that Slaanesh is feeling at that moment.
Yes.
Because again, Slanesh's whole thing is being fickle, too.
So on to the characters that you can play as in this.
Another piece of lovely art of the
With
World
with
Eaters.
with a delightful quote from Karn. Kill main burn. Kill main burn. Kill main burn.
Yep.
Such eloquence. What a swell guy.
Yeah, most Khornates aren't the most verbose. So the options that they allow you to play are a Khorne Berserker, which that sounds like an amazing fucking class. A Night Lord's Chaos Space Marine. Oh boy. Night Lords are fun. A Zeront Frostfather, not a clue what the hell that is, but they're from a primitive planet. A Chem Hunter from a planet called Messia, who
You
are
can play as
basically drug addicts. Oh no, you can play as Ricky Rackets, the real king of Messia.
you can play as an expanded armory or as a legacy weapon.
Yeah, you can play a legacy weapon. Don't
And there's
forget.
expanded rites and rituals.
Yeah, you can play as one of those. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So the World Eaters. If you don't know, they were originally the Warhounds,
Yep, the
but
Warhounds, which were the Emperor's essentially war dogs, they were known to be relatively fierce but loyal. They're not the most slaughter happy, but they were pretty. They were one of the more aggressive legions. Their Primarch was a guy named Angron. Angron's
he was angry.
existence, he became the way he was thanks to elves. Thank you, Eldar. You
So
fucking
Eldar
idiots.
knew that he was going to be dangerous, so they tried to kill him
And they
as a baby.
accidentally the prophecy that they tried to stop, because that's literally how prophecies work.
So Angron was discovered by a slaver surrounded by corpses, and he was taken, put put in the butcher's nails, which heighten his aggression.
So if you're wondering, essentially the world he's on, since very short, it's a world called Nuceria, and the planet was a shithole. It is similar to what Terra was like before the Emperor unified it somewhat, in that the situation was not great. Conditions were fucking terrible. Lives were short and painful, and the population was restive. And literally, they've applied the logic of bread and circuses, the high riders, I believe they were called, the high riders of Nuceria. And what did that
And
mean? Gladiatorial death matches.
but not just your regular gladiatorial death matches.
Freak
It's
show
with
death matches.
yep, and everyone had neural implants that made them want to kill each other.
So,
That is until Angron decided to cause a revolt, which was successful.
yep.
However, the High Riders responded and chased them off to it was a mountain. And right as they were about to die, Angron disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out he was teleported to
So
the Emperor's ship,
this also,
as
by the
all of it,
way,
as all of his friends who he had fought for years died.
also don't forget that in his early childhood years, he had to see his mentor die in the ring. Don't forget that
This
part.
yeah, none of this made Angron happy.
Also,
Not
there's two other factors. One, this makes him unique among all of his brothers, since this also makes him the biggest fucking failure among them. Every other brother was able to unify their system. He failed. Technically, you could argue Mortarion kind of failed, but he also unified almost all of Barbarous. The only one he couldn't get at was his own father.
and here's the other thing. The Emperor could not get those butcher nails out of him,
Without killing him.
and the Emperor already lost two. He didn't want to lose a third.
Oh, but here's the thing. Because remember, they retconned the Emperor to be a cunt. Angron's life was metastable at best. Those nails were killing him, slowly and painfully. How long he had left, none of his brothers knew. Mainly because the Emperor didn't tell him. But the Emperor also knew that at any point his defective son could just straight up fucking die. So he kind of used him, he kind of just unleashed him and threw him at things.
And I'm going to be honest, why would you? This is a literal pinnacle of genetic and warp science.
Oh, also
You're
don't
just
forget,
going to kill it?
here's the fucked up thing about Angron. It's hypothesized that without those nails, he would have actually had some of the higher latent psychic potential among his brothers, because he had an empathetic ability, at least before
So,
he was forced to kill his mentor, like Jim mentioned. Let me correct you. He had to kill his own mentor. That was actually the last time he seriously was able to use his empathetic powers. Because he had the
and
ability, by the way, to take away pain and transplant it into himself.
ah, and here's more of the tragedy. So, for the Warhounds to get connected to him, they decided to implant the butcher's nails into
Oh no, you
themselves.
forgot the best part, where the leader of the Warhounds, happy to see his, well, not happy, but like pleased to see his father template, visits him and is killed on the spot by Angron. His replacement is then killed on the spot by Angron. His replacement is then killed on the spot by Angron.
It's only until the
Khorne.
8th captain, a man named Khorne,
And
who was
even then,
able
he
to.
nearly died. He had to fight him for
Yeah.
hours.
Oh, and here's the final nail in the coffin that probably kicked.
Angron had demanded it because,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I don't think Angron demanded it. It was the World Eaters themselves that did it. They wanted to connect with their Primarch. Angron didn't give a shit about his Legion that much.
Oh no, he hated them. He saw them as
Yeah.
pale imitations of what he had.
But here's the final nail in the
No,
coffin.
you forgot the. Oh, is it what the Emperor told him?
No. It's what happened. It's where Nuceria is. It's in the 500 worlds of Ultramar. And here's the other thing. They're still around, and they have completely tarnished Angron's name. They don't even remember him. They just remember that failed rebellion. And when
Yeah,
Angron heard
that's the.
about that
No,
during the
no, no, no,
heresy,
no. That's the other thing that I was going to mention. Angron demanded that Nuceria burn. That was one of the things he demanded the Emperor to do. The Emperor's response was, they are too critical for the war effort at this time because, despite its barbarity, Nuceria was one of the more highly advanced worlds. Among the human race, if I had to stat Nuceria as a world, it would have probably been rated as just a stage under low Imperial, or maybe at low Imperial. That makes it pretty developed. So Angron, that is actually one of the main factors that caused Angron to lose his shit. And that is also why, as you're about to mention, what the fuck Angron did.
he killed them all. He ordered his entire legion to kill them all. And it was also that event, as well as the war that would happen in New Syria during the heresy, that turned him into a demon prince.
Oh, and
Which
don't forget
which
to mention.
Lorgar did to help him.
Yep. Because
Because
Lorgar knew
it
he was going to
technically
die.
did.
Yeah,
It technically did.
Lorgar knew he was going to die. That's why he wanted to have him ascend. Oh, here's the other thing. If you want to know where the term World Eaters got their names from, that was Angron, out of bitterness, naming them after what he named his own gladiator revolt. Because he had the title Eater of Cities. So, if you have a legion and your job is to basically murder the shit out of a planet, what do you call that? World Eaters. So yeah, low-key, Angron, I would argue, out of all of the Primarchs, is probably the most tragic aside from Conrad. Because,
which, funny enough, we're going to be going to next.
oh god, Conrad
So,
Curse.
so Conrad Kurz lands on a planet that is basically Gotham City as an entire planet.
No, okay, so the best way to describe, because it's Nostromo, which was picked because, well, Nostromo, named after the infamous cargo ship from Alien, which was actually named after a ship from another maritime disaster novel in the 1900s. Nostromo is a city of darkness, mainly because it was a mining world that, due to its industrialization, essentially completely ruined its ability to see its own sun, which was a dim red dwarf. The sun was already not very bright. The pollution basically ruined any chance of that happening. During the Age of Strife, it almost collapsed. It almost essentially pulled what happened to Fulgrim's world of Chemo. It was able to barely survive through trade, but this caused essentially a Dickensian level of A Tale of Two Cities. Basically, Gotham meets Oliver Twist meets you don't want to know what went into that Nutriloaf. Mixed with the gangs of New York. Unless you were highly wealthy, you lived, toiled, and died in darkness, probably only at the age of 30. Since your life was short and miserable. And what happened with Conrad is, he crash landed deep into the underhive of one of the 5 major cities of Nostromo. And unlike every other person, every other Primarch, even Angron had someone to lean on. He was forced to kill him, by the way. But even Angron had some pillar of support that gave him something.
Well, no, Kurz did have someone to help, or something to help him. His nightmares.
Kurz was alone, naked, and had no one to talk to but the visions in his head.
And they weren't nice visions.
No.
No. But they did tell him that of horrible things that were going to happen. So he decided to stop them by murdering people. And not just simply cutting their throats. We're talking, let's say somebody's trying to rob somebody. He would take the robber, skin him alive, record it, and then show the living flayed body in the public square
Oh
as he
no!
repents
That
his
that
sins.
that was him being nice. A very common thing he often did was he would take the public square and basically turn it into a Christmas from hell. One of his more common ones was to actually festoon the balconies with their intestines while they're still dangling from them.
And you know what happened? His tough on crime policy actually worked.
Well, what happened was initially gangs sent mobsters to hit after him. He killed them even more brutally, and then killed their bosses and forced the well, actually no, I think he killed their family of the bosses and then forced the bosses to watch as he killed them and then killed them because they're tied to the corrupt crime as well.
Yeah,
And he kept
that's
doing
why
it.
that's why I brought up the Gotham thing. He's Batman if he had no morals and was Superman.
He is what would happen if you fused Blockbuster from Bloodhaven with the Red Hood.
And so yeah, it turned out it worked though. He ended up becoming the first monarch, or the first leader of the Imperium,
The
or
remaining
of Nostromo.
mobsters, out of fear, claim to have repented. Because let's be fair, let's claim to repent. We'll get into why they say claim, and declared him king of the night.
And then, well, the Emperor arrives.
Oh,
And
here's the most fucked up thing. After he succeeded, Conrad actually showed the other half of his personality because he's a fucked up person.
the Night Haunt, as he says, Conrad Kurz, be at peace. I have arrived and intended to take you home. That is not my name, Father. I am Night Haunter, and I know full well what you intend for me.
Oh yeah, he saw
As he
that in the
cuts
future too.
as he cuts himself on that edge.
Hmm.
So he ends up recruiting or becoming the head of the Night Lords, who were
Well, so the
very
Night
much.
Lords. I can talk about this one because I actually read about them. So the Night Lords are actually interesting among the early divisions. Actually, a lot of the legions were very different. For example, the Raven Guard. For example, the Raven Guard, very different culture before Corvus took them over. The Night Lords actually, though, pretty similar to Conrad's point of view because they came from unwanted populations. They came from essentially the
Prisons.
outlaws and slaves and prisoners. They came from the dregs of society. These were scum, crooks, and they already were somewhat familiar with doing dirty business.
And they were terror troops.
They were already effective at what they knew how to do. I believe Conrad's first point of purview was to didn't he kill the ones that were most egregious?
I don't remember,
I do know
but
eventually he turns on his own legion.
well, because here's what happens. You see, Conrad Kurz leaves Nostromo. The Night Lords are recruiting from Nostromo.
Yep. If you're wondering, this is a common thing that would happen among Primarchs is they would recruit primarily from their home systems because that's who they knew.
And the other thing is that without the Night Haunter there to skin the criminals alive and festoon their organs across like
And
Christmas
because
lights,
he built no real
he built no infrastructure. He
he
built no government. He
the
built
bare
no police
minimum.
force.
The
He
bare minimum.
literally he did fucking nothing.
Yeah.
He just did the first thing that came to his mind, which was kill.
He did the
And
bare minimum. I think he maybe barely set up an office and that's it, sort of, and then left. So what the
yeah,
fuck do you think would happen if there's no one to keep watch?
a lot of crime. And do remember, these are children that are being recruited. They're
Yep.
already murderers, maybe even rapists, just complete sociopaths and psychopaths.
Because Nostromo wasn't a lot better than those original prison camps.
And because of this disgust, uh, Kurz finally had enough of this and blew up his own planet.
Not only did he blow up his own planet, he murdered most of his own fucking legion too.
I don't believe he murdered. No, he didn't murder Legion. He probably sent them on wars to die, but
No, he
he,
did personally kill several of them.
probably. Uh,
Like he didn't kill the entire legion, but he did kill a decent chunk of them.
oh, Nino, so you talk about the Custodes. Here's the problem. There's only 10,000 of them. There are hundreds of thousands of Space Marines.
The smallest of the legions were I believe it was the Emperor's Children and the Space Wolves, because in one case the Gene Seed batch was badly affected, and the latter required further stabilization rights.
Or at least tens of thousands.
The
There were
smallest of
more than
them, I
enough of them.
believe, were still at 20 to 40,000,
Yeah,
and the Ultramarines were at over 200,000 because they were the largest. It's presumed
and
that the remnants of the lost legions were suborned under them.
them and the Imperial Fists apparently.
The Imperial Fists also absorbed some of it, but basically, your average legion size at this point was between, I believe, 70,000 or 80,000 to 120.
Yeah, a lot more than 10,000, and they're easier to make.
They're a shitload easier to make.
So,
Also, a lot easier to supply because aramite is a very rare alloy.
yeah. So, yeah, because of this, Kurz realized, oh, wait a minute, I just killed my own planet. I'm gonna fucking die.
Not only did he see that, but that's the other thing. He's constantly seeing his own visions and futures. This was the point that made him realize, oh, I'm destined for the nightmare future. And he kind of snapped.
And yeah, so he
He's actually
turned traitor.
he's the prelude. He is the prelude the other traitor Primarchs use as the scapegoat to set up for Istvan 5.
Uh,
Because if I remember right, he goes rogue first.
he goes rogue, but no, here's the other thing. They didn't know that the Night Lords were going traitor. That was the whole thing. The Istvan 5, they thought they were fighting 4 legions.
Yeah.
4 against 7. And then it became 8 against 3.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
they did not...
and don't forget, at this point, Conrad was actually fragmented psychologically to the point he had 2 personalities completely now. he wasn't right in the head, and you can kind of see why. Out of all of the Primarchs, I think no matter what, Conrad's fate would always be dark.
And at the end of it, he finally lives up to his namesake and gets killed by Martin Sheen.
In case you're wondering what happens, in his last bout of sanity, he lets one of the assassins kill him. Like, it is his last gasp of sanity.
To prove his vindication. It's like, see, I did all these bad. I believe that if you do bad things, you deserve to die. I did all these bad things, so I deserve to die. So if you kill me, I win.
Because this was basically the last gasp of what sanity he had left. And if you're wondering, it was a Calidus assassin who specifically killed him.
And I said Martin Sheen because Emshin and Conrad Kurz, his name is based off the characters in the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, Loki, the horror.
But that's the Night Lords.
Using the
Psychopathic
custode.
murderers.
Oh, not Nito suggested using the custodes as generals. It would be a clusterfuck, but no more than a civilian government. That's actually
No,
not.
no,
The problem
they
is they are bound to the Emperor, and they're even more indoctrinated than the Space Marines are. They would not make great leaders. They come from noble stock, but they were basically brought up since pre-puberty and basically given these unique gene treatments and psycho indoctrinate. Like, they would not make good governors at all.
there's also the fact that their genetics, I guess, transhumanism. It's not the same thing as the Space Marines. They need the Primarch. That they absolutely need the Primarch for gene seeds.
No, he's talking about using the custodes as governors, like putting a few in place to like manage planets.
That's basically the old knight again. You
Yeah.
basically just put monsters in charge of humanity. But moving on to the game, so you have the Khorne Berserkers,
Well, no,
and
before you
so
do, and as for what happened to the Night Lords, they were never exactly the most unified before Conrad's misrule. Because let's be fair, Angron was the biggest failure, but that literally wasn't his fault. Conrad, I would argue, in any other timeline, would have been known as the biggest, fattest fucking L of all the Primarchs, barring the ones that died. But let's be fair, I think they died against the Rangdan. So let's be fair. Let us be kind and say they at least died not as losers.
yeah, we don't know how they died, but apparently it was whatever happened just was fucking
It
bad.
was so bad that basically the Primarchs involved, because Leman Russ has had to fight legions before, uh, demanded and was required to have wiped his memories of the situation.
They all wiped their memories of it.
All of them. Because it wasn't just him. I believe a couple other Primarchs were involved. And their legions also were wiped. Like, it was that bad. Like,
Well,
just
not
remembering it
yeah,
was that bad.
worse than the Horus Heresy, absolutely worse. Which is why they will never reveal that, because how the fuck can you top the Heresy?
Especially after you butchered the heresy in the last stages by stretching it too long. Anyway, Coordinate Berserkers. Yeah, these guys are scary.
So if you're a Khorne Marine, you get +5 to your weapon skill and strength. You get things such as athletics, um, forbidden lores, common lore, war.
Yeah, these guys are not just. The thing is, they're not just completely violent psychopaths who just run in and murder. They do that, but these are the veterans from many battles and campaigns.
So I like the starting gear. You can get a chain axe or a chain sword, or a bolt pistol, or a second chain axe.
I'm gonna be
That's better
honest.
than
Why wouldn't you just get 2 chain swords?
no. It's 2 chain axes,
2
not a
chain
sword.
axes is also good.
I gotta say, this is really terrific. You get special abilities such as Avatar of Slaughter, allowing you, after taking a full move action, spend an infinite point to force opponents within line of sight to make a difficult willpower test. If they fail, they suffer a -20 penalty to attack the Berserker on their next turn, which
Uh,
stacks.
because these guys are fucking horrifying. Unstoppable Wrath, by the way, if you're wondering how that works, during combat, you can spend an infamy point to make an opposed strength check or ignore a successful parry. So you can basically force them to eat the hit.
And some examples of berserkers in the vortex is the Brass Gladiator, the Herald of the Gore-Circed Horde, or the Red Fury.
Yep. They're quite horrifying.
I mean, it's a blunt instrument. You're there to charge and kill.
Night Lords, Chaos Space Marines, these guys are fucking great.
So you get, let's see, Dark Sight as a trait, which
Yeah.
makes sense. Prey Sight. Uh, get starting talents, Paranoia.
Because
You get
again, you're kind of inheriting, because Conrad Curse was kind of batshit crazy. Most of the Night Lords are also a bit batshit crazy, just to start with.
some of them also have his precognitive abilities.
And that's not a good combo.
Oh, it's not. Let's see what you get. A Legion Chainsword or a Power Sword, 2 frag grenades, 2 crack grenades, demolition charges, or a melt-a-bomb.
You
And
could do.
you're
Remember, these guys also are very good at being stealthy. Not quite Alpha Legion level bullshit, but imagine sneaking up and using a melt-a-charge, and then laughing as they stop existing.
well, no, you set it off just correctly so that it leaves them alive,
Partially
but
alive.
partially. Yep. So
So
you get
yeah,
Spectral Haunter. So penalties for attacking Night Lords uh, that are based on visual hindrances increased by 20.
because they fight like Batman. They
Yeah.
literally run around in the dark and can just they can just grab and yeet you. By the way, this version of them, this is not the version with bat wings, which yes, those exist. They one of their more common mutations is to develop real bat wings, which is pretty great.
I mean, that's for the jump pack guys, I think.
No. There's standard jump pack, and then there's the ones with bat wings.
Hmm. You get Terror Tactics, so you may spend an infamy point to grant himself or his allies the Fear trait for the remainder of a session. So you just spend infamy, and everyone fears you.
I'm going to be frank. If I started a Black Crusade game as a Chaos Space Marine, I'd want to play as a Night Lord just because you can do some creepy shit with them.
Would you play it as unaligned, or like what would you play as the character?
Mm, I think a fun one would either be unaligned or they actually lean more towards Zinch. So you can kind of
Ooh,
play them as the Riddler almost.
he paints himself in green and purple one day.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. What's going to cause this entire flat? What's going to crush this entire flat? A pipe bomb.
I would
Wrong.
say I was gonna say what's blue and red all over.
Oh, an ultramarine. After I
Eh,
saw their head off with my chainsword.
Just a horrible Joker.
You could play. You could do it. You could
I
basically
meant, I
take
meant
any
Joker
arc of.
as a comedian, not Joker as in the villain.
You could also like legitimately pick any of the rogues gallery from Batman, make him a Night Lord, and it fucking works.
What about the Condiment King
Yeah, I could see it work, but you'd have
or
to.
the Vincent Price egg guy, an
Vincent
egg
Price, that guy.
themed
Yeah.
yeah, an egg themed Night Lord. Instead of throwing, he just throws eggs. It's just they never suspect it. How terrifying!
They never suspect it, and then you find out. Oh no, don't worry, it's not a normal egg. Ah! As their ceramite starts melting, it's an egg from this creature, and it looks like a giant chicken. The egg has a pH of 0.05. It's one of the most acidic things on the planet and the universe, as far as we know.
Are the more sane Corn followers the ones you should fear the most? Yes,
I would say
because they're usually in charge.
the scariest Khornate followers are the ones that are clear-headed enough to plan, or the ones who have transcended rage so badly it has entered not hot rage, cold rage.
Hmm.
Because a cold anger, in my experience, is much scarier than hot anger.
So, now for the mortals. The Zurant Frostfather.
That's just fucking Kratos, man.
Last season I killed no near 20 spans long without taking more than 3 cuts. I do not believe you will cause one.
Yeah, you're just fucking Kratos, man. You're
They they honor their bloody god Baftar.
like
So
look at the design. That's just fucking Kratos.
indeed.
Hmm. Not the biggest fan of the design, but the concept is cool.
So yeah, they don't. It's basically Vikings. It is
They're
Chaos
Viking.
Vikings.
It's Chaos Vikings from the point of view of when was this made? Was this around the time that God of War, the Norse expansion pack?
No. This was early 2000s, 2010s, mid
Oh, so it'd still be inspired by Kratos though.
possibly, but uh, look at the special abilities. Great boast. I found point display of skill and bravery in the face of the enemy are, you know, integral. So
Flighting.
succeed.
It's basically
Yeah,
flighting.
succeed a hard strength or agility or willpower check to resist fear in combat. You have visions of death. Baftar's divine visions are both a blessing and a curse, so you may spend an infamy point to go into frenzy as a free action. However, every 2 days that pass without killing a worthy adversary requires a routine willpower check to avoid a -5 penalty to intelligence, perception, and fellowship.
You like how it's cumulative too. You could just get so bored. You get
I don't
so bored, you just sit there. That's amusing.
see. Oh God, I can see somebody torturing this guy, keep him alive on a starship, but in chains. Can't kill anyone.
Hey, guess what you just did? You just gave a Slaneshi warband a fun idea.
Until he's a drooling idiot. And you've got Chosen of Baftar, the Unchained, and the City Dweller.
Yeah,
And then you have the Chem Hunter of Messia.
mm,
So,
not the most inspired design, but I also don't hate it.
yeah.
So Messia is one of those horribly polluted worlds. Human life is still around though, and they are mostly around the twin poles, the North and South Pole.
And so these guys are exposed to all these pollutants.
These are fucking Mad Max guys. This is just
I'm
Mad Max. If you want to play like a Morton Joe or something, here you go.
well, also high on drugs.
Well, no, straight up. Because they hunt Promethium. That's guzzling. This is just
Yeah.
fucking Mad Max. If you want to play Master Blaster, here you go. This is what you play as. We found the Mad Max one. And that's not a bad thing. Playing a Mad
Actually,
Max character is sometimes really fun.
habitual user. So they're encounter toxins so often that their body becomes resilient. So they get a +10 to skill bonuses when they administer a dose of a drug. They suffer a -10 penalty to resist addiction, though.
Yeah, because their bodies are so choked with toxins, they need more of it to feel the effects, but they're also more in desperate need of the effects. It's fair.
Wait, actually, you're right. With the Mad Max thing, Wasteland Raider.
Yeah, straight up. This is legitimately Mad Max,
Yeah,
which I'm fine with.
when two drill clans meet, their rigs clash like titanic beasts.
Yeah, legitimately, I'm fine with it. I am totally okay if you want to play a Lord Humongous. Just walk away. If
And
I had to play a mortal character that was a Khorne in or just any Chaos worshiper, I would straight up play one of these guys. Come on, don't you want to play a guy
yeah,
who uses like ceramite shells from a blaster from like a bolt pistol as his teeth?
those are going to be some pretty big teeth.
Yeah, fair enough, but still,
Yeah. So onto the weapons. You have something like a boiler cannon, which is a steam cannon.
nice.
Ooh, you get to melt skin.
If you're wondering, the boiler cannon is a pretty interesting one. I like that they're coming up with stuff that you might find on low tech worlds. Like this would be the equivalent of something you might run into on not necessarily a feudal world, but like one that's from the same period that you'd have Laszlocks.
Yeah. Melee weapons. You have a bone crusher mace, a chain axe, greater chain axe, and of course, a chain hammer, because you need to rip the flesh off of something you're bludgeoning.
That's pretty great.
There's,
Also,
oh, there's,
you did miss the Mark IV Thresher support gun.
oh,
It's a type of stubber. Attached to the side of drill rigs, the way this works are they're designed to make use of local ammunition sources on Messia. Its shells are not likely to penetrate armor, but are lethal enough against foes such as the mutants that stalk the surface. Which is again another nod to Mad Max, because remember, there's mutants in that setting. It is designed to be used with backpack or vehicle mounted supplies. So it's your high tech gun.
yep.
Well, it's not your high tech. It's your scrap auto machine gun. Chain hammer, chain spear is also fun.
I remember. I think in Dark Heresy there's a chain dagger.
There is.
There's the Iron Fang chainsword, the Cursian pit weapons.
So what are Curse is a brutal world. It has a lot of gladiatorial fighting. And if you're wondering, Curse is low-key visited and influenced by the Dark Eldar. Essentially, occasionally the Dark Eldar essentially patronize and use those pits to find interesting sport.
What else do we have? Oh, we have blade hands, which come from the. They're similar to Hydra gauntlets, but they're crude.
There's also the heavy shield.
There's the silver net, which makes me wonder: are we talking about Dark Eldar or Harlequins?
Sliver nets, basically these are intentionally made out of the worst type of metal, the rustier the better. And the spurs of rusted metal break off in their skin.
Yeah, that honestly the same thing as the Harlequin's kiss, just not on the inside.
They also have sickle swords.
Was
Also,
it
the
a
best part about all of the curse weapons, they're all made out of scrap ass pig iron, which I find amazing.
Also, uh, Jimmy, well, hopefully you get the recharge on that.
Hopefully you don't power your tablet with blood. That doesn't go well in the experience we learned from that tech priest.
No, it worked for him.
Well, for about 40 days, then he lost his personality and became a demon dog guy.
That's so bad.
Given that he talked completely differently and acted possessed, probably.
Well, speaking of possible possession, rune weapons.
That's interesting.
They're not daemon weapons, but they are ensnare an object. Um, so I this is a shield that was possessed, or a weapon that was possessed by a daemon, but is no longer.
Oh, that's cool. So,
Oh, and then
rune weapons are basically what happens if you manage to find a weapon that the daemon breaks free from, but it's still reasonably intact.
a wailing axe, which creates cries when it hits something. And then finally, the daemon weapons.
Also, low-key, putting a daemon in your shield sounds amazing. Just, like, be the
Yeah.
biggest asshole.
Oh, I like the daemon weapons. Embrace me, mortal, and together we will split the very stars. Greater demon Schnazagato, found trapped within a small dagger.
That's cute.
So you get the Berserker Glaive, the Blood Feeder, the Dread Axe, the Firestorm Blade.
Which looks pretty cool. I would say the pommel is a little overly stylized, but that's just me. The 8-pointed star is kind of like I like the Khorne symbol, don't like the 8-pointed star.
But that's chaos.
I know.
How will you know it's not a chaos weapon without it?
I don't know, the symbol of Khorne that represents the crossguard.
Fair enough.
Also, well, I mean, it's a daemon weapon. It's not supposed to make sense. I can just envision someone hitting it on the narrowest points in the Khorne symbol, and it fucking breaks. But the thing is, since it's a Khorne symbol, that's easily the strongest part of the blade, I bet. It's
You get
really
the
funny.
you get the Forge Whip, the Gore Whip, the Great Axe of Khorne.
If you're wondering what a gore whip is, they're made out of sinew and use chunks of broken bone as the flaying aspects of it.
And the
Oh, by
Forge
the way, it shits out energy that can split people apart.
Oh, and the Forge Whip has it was made out of a Fleshhound that was punished for failing to catch its quarry.
Yep.
Then there's the Heart Ripper, the Soulfire Lance, and I love that Bloodletter on the Havoc autocannon,
It's very fitting.
or the Hades autocannon. I forget which one it is.
It's a type of autocannon using Jagged Maw of a Bloodletter or Fleshhound.
I think you know what? I have something similar to it. I put a Daemon head on top of a gun to make it look like it was, the mouth was the barrel. So I guarantee you this inspired me.
Probably. There's some really good art in these ones.
Yep.
Also, Soulfire Lance. Don't you want to wield a giant spinal column?
Sure.
Each time you squeeze the lance, the daemon within howls, which unleashes a vortex of energy that draws its victims into the lance itself. You can Hakai them with this thing. You can make them not exist anymore.
See, and then you have various other armor and upgrades.
The Mantle
Or
of Hate. It's a type of Legion power armor that's still around kicking.
Ashen Gray armor that are overwhelmed with feelings of unrelenting bitterness and loathing.
Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. Ashen Gray. Is that a word bearer? Or an Imperial Herald?
They also have force fields like the Infernal Star, which is a twisted variant of the Iron Halo.
The Messian Sky Splitter?
So
And there's a,
Messia, which is the Mad Max world, is a pretty awful star.
yep.
And let's see, do they explain? The richest,
It,
most
it,
fortunate few, the Sky Splitter, similar to a power field generator.
yep. It is it's just a force field for a vehicle.
Okay.
Then we got the classic Call of Khorne, which force weapons never gain their regular abilities against the wearer.
It also
It
protects you
helps.
from psychic powers, which is very,
Yep.
very nice.
Um, Icon of Endless War, the Skull Mask of Angrath, the Venic Noose. Oh, the Talisman of Burning Blood.
They
That is
have a
an
lot
artifact
of. Hmm?
that is an artifact I have seen in the actual game.
I actually like all these items they're adding into this.
Yep.
It's
Oh,
really,
and
it's really nice. Like it really
mm,
adds to Black. Like there's a reason I really do recommend the tomes. If you're playing Black Crusade, you don't necessarily need all of them, but it really helps if you have at least one of them.
and then we have our minions that we can summon. Blood Callers, which I think are just mortals.
They're not. Oh wow, those are some of the worst stats I've ever seen.
The presence of a Blood Caller allows. Uh, it allows you to make a ritual that would require a Psyker. But
Ah.
keep in mind, they're always sacrificed to Khorne during these rituals. Once they've fulfilled their purpose, they're treated as a minion that has been killed.
Oh, okay, that explains why their skills are so fucking terrible.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
they're literally just blood bags.
Yep. Basically, Psychers. The only value that Khorne usually attributes to them at all is if it helps you in your combat, and that's it. That's it. Like if you're using biomancy to improve like your physical capabilities, that's about as close as he comes to accepting it, or
I
just
mean,
to summon.
unless you're a Blood Raven's chapter master and chief librarian.
That's the funniest shit from that game.
Then again, we've never seen him use his psychic powers.
As soon as I realized I had psychic potential, it disgusted me.
Well, no. What I do like about it is that in the second game, he was freed by a greater demon of Nurgle, and he's like, "Yeah, Nurgle helped me, but I found Khorne more enlightening because nothing matters but killing."
As for what a brass harbinger is, they are neither man nor demon and exist somewhere in between. These are similar to remember the unique species of beastmen native to the Antarctic vortex?
I know there are beastmen. I didn't know that there were unique
Basically,
ones.
since there were no men in that area, it's animals that were fused with daemons, essentially, and they're basically their
Oh,
offspring. That's what the Brass Harbinger kind of reminds me of. They're also known as Brazen Herald, Steel Oracles. They're kind of like, from what it looks like, they're like these really fucked up almost. They're also almost like constructs in a way.
they're guys that I think are made to praise you.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and then you have mounted riders with a quote from Doom Rider.
Fun.
So this gives you characteristics for mounted combat, and they give mount profiles. You got combat bikes, uh, various beasts,
Because you
such
can't,
as
if you can control them, you can ride a juggernaut.
yeah, such as a gore driver. It's a bike that is hosted by a demon. A Messian outrider.
Those are your Mad Max vehicles. You can
Yep.
kind of add whatever you want out of it.
Oh, and then finally the legacy weapons. So these are weapons that they're not daemon weapons, but they're weapons that have a history to them.
Yeah,
So
these are
you
basically weapons with old histories to them.
they actually give examples of histories later on. Legacy of Betrayal, which is a
Well, no,
weapon
there's
that
some
double.
really cool ones. Legacy weapons, for example, lose primitive quality if it ever had it. A legacy weapon that does not possess the power field quality only has a 10% chance of being destroyed when parried, rather than the usual 75% chance. Legacy weapon is treated as being one step higher in craftsmanship. They're the signature weapons of their owners,
So
not
you
tools to be
really can't
used.
yeah, you really can't use another one.
Yep.
If you stop, then it stops being infamous.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you stop using it because you're greedy, it loses its infect.
but so you can have a legacy for both a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. Uh, I kind of like, I guess, the idea with that you do it on a weapon that's not appropriate, like this legacy of betrayal. Uh, you deal an extra D5 damage against unaware or surprise targets, but it hits a random ally instead, and you put it on a melt-a-gun. The other thing, the legacy of change, obviously the Zinch one, and if you get a bonus of 2d5, which that's an odd die roll, uh, to determine the bonus of the weapon um, that it grants to either a weapon skill or ballistic skill test. But if the result is double, it's given to the other type of test.
Also, you cannot use this weapon if you're a heretic aligned with Nurgle, obviously.
And obviously, you can forge your legacy,
Although there
and
is
you get
there is a comedy though for Legacy of Change where let me think, what would be the crack grenade?
it's a grenade though. It's only a one-use weapon.
No. Because you have multiple of them, you become known for using grenade foo, where you beat them over the head with grenades.
Oh, it's used as a melee weapon.
You could use it as a melee weapon, or you could use it as an explosive. You're just your legacy weapon is your infamous skill with grenades.
Wait, no, it's shaped like a boomerang. And it was twisted by the warp, but that's how it always keeps coming back, even after you throw the pin.
You throw the pin, it explodes, it just reforms.
And so yeah, you have different abilities that you can get for it based on, I guess, your pattern or your uh, the way you're trying to make it a legacy weapon.
Also, a legacy weapon does have its own corruption aspect.
And you actually can bind it to a daemon weapon. A daemon weapon can't become one, but you could bind it to a daemon.
Yep. The bag of grenades sounds hilarious. That's pretty good. Let me think. What's another really silly one? Uh,
Um,
the Legacy of Blood. Oh, I know. I know. It makes no sense, but you use it on a Prometheum thrower because you just, whenever you see Psychers, you have to burn them alive. It makes no sense, but fuck it, you could hypothetically do it.
oh, you know what I'm thinking of? Where is one that's like a martial? Do a martial one, but for a sniper rifle.
Let's
Let me
see.
let me, let me see.
I got
Um,
it. The because it can be used for torture instead of the Legacy of Plague. You just you double tap someone with you stole a Vindicare rifle, and because you're so evil, it gains the Legacy of Plague as because you're a Nurglite.
or actually, no, Legacy of Rage, because it gives +1 to its rate of fire. Um,
You snipe someone and they just become so angry.
yeah, you double tap.
No, Legacy of Slaughter to this shitty pig iron like no to this shitty fucking prison shiv.
Yeah. Well, then the next feature though is the various rites and rituals.
Because that's also an important thing if you're playing. Each of these tomes actually expands on aspects of being a chaos worshiper, and that's something that's
Yeah.
really nice.
Because what Khorne is not a, you know, guy who uses ciphers. He does obviously have rituals and rites, and you can summon his forces.
And he does accept psychery in terms of two effects. One, you're summoning a daemon with it. Two, you're only using it to get stronger by actually bulking up your body.
I have a feeling that even if he's against that, you could just point out, well, there's all the guys that have super steroids.
I
So,
mean, I mean, as long as
somehow,
you survive the bloodhound
yeah,
he sends after you, I think you'll be fine
eh,
because you
so you have
proved your strength.
yeah, various rites that you can do, various rituals. Um,
I mean, that's just my point of view. Like, I like the whole thing is since he is a being of psychic energy, essentially, he does have to tolerate at least the bare minimum. Like, he doesn't want any other psychic powers barring what allows you to steroid punch your way to victory, or to
oh,
summon a giant monster to rip people apart. So the advanced horde rules, because there's a lot of
yeah,
besides the legacies, you can also add things from the patterns.
yeah. Um, but I like this quote for the Masters of Destruction. Teach a man to fight, and he'll owe you a debt. Kill a man, and that's one less potential enemy to worry about.
That is correct. Oh, hey, Vegeta, you could take the 500 on the left. I'll take the 500 on the right.
So the way that they have you do mass combat, it's easier to hit a horde,
Oh shit!
and
Look, it's a Cornate pirate. Here you go.
oh yeah,
Hell
right.
yeah,
I want his skull.
that's good. I like that. Thank you for showing. We
What?
mentioned it. This could be. I always mention that if you ever wanted to use like Stromfelds from Warhammer Fantasy or like some of your Scariosa. I think it's Scariosa. I'm brain dead. No, god
Sword
damn it.
Trojan? Are
No,
you say? Are you?
what's the Sicily equivalent again in Tylea? My brain is fried.
Oh,
Scariosa is different.
it's Tylea. It's or Tilia or whatever. But all right. So when you are
Basically,
attacking,
the pirates, the pirate faction.
so when you're a human attacking a horde, and melee receives +10 to hit based on its size. Because a human's unable to throw themselves fully into the thick of things like a Chaos Marine. When rolling damage against humans for melee attack, a horde rolls an additional d10s equal to its magnitude divided by 10 to a maximum of 2d10. But against a marine, you discard the lowest one or two dice.
This seems a little jank. I get what it's trying to do. It's trying to essentially arbitrate and make it more
Yeah.
simplistic.
Basically, there are bonuses depending on the size of the horde, and the horde is essentially shooting all at once.
God damn it! That equivalent to Sicily is messing with my head. Okay, one sec. I have to figure this out because my brain is like, it's not allowing me.
Let me see. Telia.
What?
Um,
It's the
there's
pirate
Lucy.
faction.
Lucy. Oh, it's Sartosa.
Thank you, Sartosa. Holy shit! I was thinking Scariosa, which is a different fucking duchy. Thank you. Holy shit. Holy shit. That was annoying me so bad. That was annoying me so bad. Ah, thank you, man.
I didn't even realize that they were Chilean. I thought they were just a pirate kingdom.
Sartosa. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sartosa. Thank you. Holy shit. What was wrong with me? It was like on the tip of my tongue. I was just remembering the wrong one.
So let's see what else. Yeah. So, but the other thing is also is that if you're fighting a Chaos Space Marine, they get a bit of a decrease in their damage that you're doing.
Mainly because they have so many others to kill at once that you actually have a chance. So, how big is a horde? Did they actually describe the size of a
I
horde?
think that might be in the base rules. Like, yeah, because this is advanced horde rules, so
Okay.
they already have it, but I guess this is just in more detailed. Like the ability to evade from attacks against hordes, doing combat actions, grappling a horde doing Overwatch or suppressing fire, and the different traits a horde can have.
Also, don't
Dis
forget that hordes have a different way to handle fear tests.
yeah, and finally also mass combat. So,
Yeah.
so the way they do that is sort of either it's done narratively, as in the characters are taking a bit of a back seat, or you have formations. Formations have a combat skill characteristic, and that's to, I guess, determine their strength. It says a formation of Chaos Space Marines that include a squad of Raptors might have a +5 for specialist equipment, and a force of Imperial drop troops with grav shoots benefit from a 10 or a 15, simply because of their strength, obviously their base size. And when you resolve combat formations, you fight based on that. You make a test based on that combat skill.
Oh, by the way, this is similar to how I would argue that you should handle only war. A little bit of a funny little story involving the time I ran an only war game. I used to use the narrative method for larger scale combat aspects that did not involve the player characters and their squad minions. Um, I usually resolved them partially based on what they did, but also partially on what the dice rolls were. One of the funniest moments was when they accidentally had almost all of their fleet get sucked into the warp.
Oh,
And then conversely, they managed to actually somehow pull them back.
hmm.
Purely through the belief that they had an Imperial Saint on their side. Because they accidentally kind of made one of their player characters an Imperial Saint. Even though they weren't technically one.
Interesting. So the way that formation combat works, you have to get 6 degrees of success in your fight. Essentially, this means that if you're fighting like slaves against a unit of Chaos Space Marines, there's an easier chance for
Like
them to
lambs
just
to a slaughter.
yeah, there's an easier chance to wipe them out in one combat.
Well, no, no, no. The funniest of them all would actually be you send Gretchen against a Warlord Titan. Let's go! Or Daemon Primarch. Go on, wouldn't that be hilarious? And then you have the garbage win.
Yes, again, bad rolls. And obviously, you have modifiers for their tests, and you might, if you have a heretic, like one of your characters fighting alongside, you can attempt to use an infamy, command, weapon skill, or ballistics test to give them bonuses to their combat skill, and obviously improve the fight. So
Also,
basically,
combat test modifiers, it's not just what they're armed with, it's the situation. You're going to be in a lot easier, you're going to be in a lot better shape if you're fighting from a fortified position. Conversely, um, if you're charging a fortified position, that's a lot harder.
yeah, and you total up your amount of, I believe, combat like points you won by, and that determines your victory points. That determines whatever your victory is. So this is a way to just simulate a mass battle. I mean, I would
Really
say it's always
quickly. Really
just
quickly.
break out the miniatures.
I would say, yeah, break out the miniatures in this case because, hey, guess what? You actually have an opportunity to use them, and on top of that, it's a rule system that you might actually find enjoyable. And if you
And
don't, this is a quick way to abstract it.
yeah. Then finally, onto the
And if
actual
you're wondering how
world.
narrative works, it's based on like story beats and what the players have done.
So it's either, yeah, your narrative is character focused, formations is actual like big battles.
As for pivotal events, they're worth a number of victory points, ranging from a variety. A helpful one's 100, decisive is 500.
And you total up your victory results, and whatever the difference is, especially if you are a servant of Khorne, gives you much more reward. But
Also,
onto
the
the
battle size, here's the victory points required.
yep. Also, onto then the planets of the Screaming Vortex that are aligned with Khorne.
Hey, look, it's the Space Marine again. I guess he's still watching Star Wars The Acolyte, since his eyes are bleeding. No!
One of them,
No! Stop! Stop doing this! You only had one good fight scene in episode 1! She died from a kunai!
why is there a naked man?
Why is there romance? This is not a soap opera. I am angry.
So the first of the planets up are Baron and Asphodel. So there are two planets very close to each other. Asphodel has a population of Kroot, despite being, I think, on the other side of the galaxy.
Also, their star is actually poisonous.
Is that possible?
No, not really. I mean, you could hypothetically have chemicals in the star that are poisonous, but you know it'd be much more of a concern. The fucking heat of the stellar body. Although you could maybe argue that like you're arguing like it's magic. First off, technically it's magic. You're in the vortex, which means you're in the warp, so it might actually just be poisonous. Second, it could be what's called a flare star. Flare stars are basically very minor, like red dwarf stars that are barely at the mass required for fusion. Every now and again, they'll randomly flare up and shit out fuckloads of radiation.
Hmm.
It could be that, or it could, because it's in the warp, actually be made of poison that's fusing itself. Oh yeah, the
So
star's made out of pure arsenic.
it is.
Could be, for all you know.
Oh, so
It's in the warp. Logic kind
because
of breaks down.
so these Kroot, obviously, because they have the ability to absorb genetic information from the creatures they eat, uh, they're on a planet that has a lot of lethal and feared species, but it has made them kind of feral. They are actually cannibalizing each other.
Which, I mean, the crew kind of naturally do anyway.
No, I think that
No, they do occasionally. Not to the degree these guys are doing, but basically, if one of their battle brethren has fallen and they had decent adaptations, they will eat them ritualistically.
oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
Now, it's not like something they do all the time, but they will do it.
Yeah.
Or
Some of
if
these,
their adaptations are maladaptive, they will eat a more pure strain Kroot.
uh, only a few of these crew had their shapers know the ability to manufacture their flintlock rifles, but most of them, I guess, use melee weapons, their own strength, or arrows.
Because they're
Tipped in.
basically returning to non-sentience, which Kroot can do, depending on what they're consuming.
Yep. They believe that life on Asphodel is a test to breed strength and cunning, so they encourage the crew to make war on one another. Only when the conjunction appears do they make ready for war.
So if you're
Which,
wondering, you can low-key, if you wanted to, you can get one of your Zulu warriors to substitute for a Kroot, like that one Italian guy suggested, and you can have them be a Kroot warrior from Asphodel. I think actually that could be a really fun idea, where one of the Black Crusade characters you're playing alongside with is actually a Kroot.
I think you can't. They do. They list traits that they would have, and they give I guess a basic stat line,
That's actually good then. That's pretty neat.
and they give you the shapers, the hounds,
And if you're
crew
wondering,
pots,
they're int. I think they're still smarter than Ogren, if not by much.
and the crew tor, which is a giant saurian predator. But then here's the next planet, Barren. It is an empty desert world full of orcs. They do not carry complex weapons. They rely on choppas and the rare heavy pistol. Um, the population are a little more than a food source, as they're
Yeah.
unable to cope with the lethal sunlight and the flesh-stripping winds.
Okay, so I'm guessing it probably we are dealing with either a flare. We probably are dealing with a flare star, or again, maybe the star sends arsenic through its solar radiation.
And we have a variety of squigs. The multi-legged racer squig, the gas-filled balloon squig, and probably a bunch of other things. But you do have, surprisingly enough, mech boys.
Who there are no bosses, by the way.
Yep.
No bosses, no masters.
And they have then been able to construct vehicles, rocket-driven sleds and
More
buggies.
Mad Max, which I'm okay with.
Actually, no, this is Dark Sun.
It's a mixture of Dark Sun and actually the pod racing from Phantom Menace.
Huge, hide-stitched airships filled with hundreds of balloon squigs lashed together.
Yeah.
Squig-powered airships with belching squig engines.
If you're wondering why these orc tribal states basically don't really advance, it's because of the weather systems. Essentially, large dust storms will occasionally rip through the planet rapidly, so long campaigns are not something they're inclined to do.
Yeah. Mech boys create explosives from the little mineral wealth they have. They have no sense of time, geography, and climate is impossible to make defending more than a single settlement even possible. There are never-ending storms, and they have the weird boys believe that there are daemons stalking.
And they're
Legend,
not entirely
yeah,
wrong, because based on some deeper, obscure, basically deeper
yeah,
occult lore, a powerful daemon met its end here.
and so it's a curse. But and let's see, we have Zergab, the weird boy. He's constructed a great. So a weird boy. Remember, weird boys are psychers.
Yep.
3 great storms are coming to destroy Council clans considered an ill omen, but Zergab has been obsessed with them. Picks over the wreckage left in their wake, collecting pieces of debris and bones of the unfortunate victims. Believes that the strange spiral symbol found carved into the remains form a language, one that he is able to understand.
Oh
He's begun,
shit.
he's
No, no,
begun a
no.
construction of a great throne. When the massive throne of bones and skulls is complete, he knows that whoever sits upon it will lead the orcs in a great war, the likes of which had never been seen on Barren. Enough to crush the Beak Boys, the world they came from, and anything else in the Screaming Vortex.
Because yeah, every now and again the crew are able to hop off world to fuck with and fight them.
Oh, actually, the Baron Orc Boys, they have a special Blood for the Blood God.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And these are orcs that are
These are
shunned from their
coordinated.
tribes.
Yeah.
They're coordinate orcs. They gain frenzy in the two weapon wielder trait. But yeah, these are Khorne orcs.
The
Along with their uh, mechs on squig driven airships.
You know, the best part about this is it's a little bit of Dark Sun, but also a little bit of Junji Ito's Uzumaki.
Oh, you're right, with the spirals.
I like it. This is really also I. This is one of the few times where the main focus is on the other non-humans.
That's why I like it.
This is so cool. Oh God, this is so great.
And yet they each ward each other at certain times.
I low key. I'm also really happy that the Kurt got their little big moment here.
Yeah.
And orcs being properly on Orky and actually being able to survive as a tribe.
Actually,
Fuck
let
yeah.
me let me check on the Crute if there's any reference to Khorne there. Um,
Not heavily so, but they are
yeah,
likely corrupted by them.
not heavily, but they are becoming more monstrous.
Yep.
Um,
The inability to grasp their current mad existence, by the way. They believe that the world of Baron is actually their form of heaven, paradise, and the time they spend on Asphodel is one of the main stages of life they have to endure in order to prove themselves worthy to ascend. Basically, they're not as corrupted as the orcs are because the planet that the orcs are on, Baron, is possessed by the shattered remains of a furious daemon of Khorne. But because it was broken apart, it, its rage and nightmares basically possess the crew slightly, their leadership, and it makes them want to go there. So yeah,
the, the-
legitimately, they are corrupted, just nowhere near as bad as the orcs because they're not on the planet.
then the next planet is the Crucible.
I've heard of that one.
Yes, it's where all things meld together in opposition to the Erd Tree.
Oh no, there's also the conjunction. If you're wondering what this is, as the planets come to grow in the skies of each other, each race prepares for battle. Across the void, begin to struck rocket ships. When they feel each other's sky, they commit to their invasions. So they actually do short space hops to fight each other.
Yeah.
That's when they fight.
You know what I realized? You could actually, because the Crute have recently gotten an update in 40k, you could have a battle between Savage Orcs and Crute.
Not just savage orcs and Kroot, but you could also play with the elements of chaos armies too, especially among the orcs.
Ooh.
You can throw in a couple of minor daemon entities or something.
Speaking of daemons, so the Crucible is a daemon world.
I've heard of this one.
I think it's been referenced before.
It's been referenced several times.
So yeah, it's basically different groups of chaos forces
Basically,
fighting on this one planet.
existing if you're immortal, existing on this planet is soul searing agony. No matter who controls it.
They do give references though to some demons and like Kinslayer, the Herald of Khorne.
Yep.
As he was, as interesting enough, um, when not engaged, Bloodletters typically release their rage on any opponent available. However, Kinslayer disdains this practice, keeping his followers disciplined. He finds opponents who have pledged to the other room's privacy, offers his followers an endless opportunity to utilize their rage to actively weaken the other forces. He herds a vast number of mortal souls into the anticipating battlefields where they can share in the combat through their agonizing wounds.
Yeah, unlike most bloodletters, he's actually somewhat above the normal.
Oh, and then there's Goreclaw the Render,
Yeah, I remember Goreclaw.
a daemon prince that was once a chaos space marine who slew more than 100 loyalists in hand-to-hand combat.
Yep.
And you have
By the way, he was also known for decapitations. That was his main
yep,
specialty.
and you have Slaughterwing, Fury of the Heavens, a daemon prince that has mastered the skies, a mortal human obsessed with flight. He idolized the predators of the sky, dwelling upon their ability to prey upon those bound to the planet's surface, and he started mechanical flight, killing his opponents in Khorne's name. Only after he traumatized an entire civilization, such as their fear of his ravages, that
Oh,
none would ever venture beneath the open sky.
is this Bomber Harris? Is this Bomber Harris the architect of the massive bombing campaigns over Germany?
Well, no, he traumatizes.
Is
Oh,
is this Hermann Goering during the Battle of Britain? Also, that reminds
No,
me. No. Here's the thing. A Khorne Air Force. You know what I would envision? They would probably have something that simulates the Stuka's scream as it dives, but it would actually be throat screams.
Mongolian throat sing mixed with TIE fighter noises.
Yep. Crucible is not as interesting as the one we just read, mainly because it's another battle world for daemons, and I find those probably the least interesting, personally.
And then well, the next one is Furia. There's no telling how deep the waters of Furia run. There are many attempts to find the bottom. It's all fruitless. Some say there's simply no end to the world ocean. But violent forces churn beneath the surface of the ocean, giving
No. Here,
Leviathan
here's the
control of
most
the
cursed
bottom.
thing. There's an often told tale that a void ship once crashed and sank upon the world, but the ship's intact savior beacon would pulse its continuous, remorseless descent into the limitless death for many years before it finally grew too faint to detect. The final readings indicated the vessel had descended to a depth that would put it way outside of the orbit of the planet itself. It still didn't reach the
Oh.
bottom. The sky is bleak. It has perpetual cloud cover, meaning not even the stars are visible. The vast empty overhead has been known to drive people mad. No weather turns the sky or moves the water, so it's completely still.
A still surface, but underneath, it's a bloody mess. You,
Stagnation of air top give the sense of stillness and lethargy, which right below the water, they're massive currents that are capable of floating, pushing villages miles off course in a matter of minutes. Every now and again, random riptides would just destroy everything.
ooh. So you have saber sharks, daggerfish, kilometers of Medusa kelp, but the Lords of Furia are the Leviathans, enormous mountains of warp-tainted flesh. They are long, amorphous bodies, ropey with sinuous muscle, flailing tentacles wrapping an entire village in their grasp, and massive ebon beaks to crush the hulls of spaceships. They're not often seen on the surface, but a horrific flush of red-tinged water known as the Crimson Flow often heralds their approach.
Oh, that's cool.
There's not a single spit of dry land on Furia, and thus the natives who call the planet home must fight over a frighteningly scarce collection of resources. In the absence of fresh water or reliable precipitation, they live off the flesh of their catches, saving and drinking the collected blood as the only way to quench their never-ending thirst. They live in large scrap towns, built from the decaying remnants of starships that arrived on Furia long ago. It's Waterworld.
It's an even shittier water world. But yeah, because of there's essentially only salt water and organs, you basically have to do what the Fremen did, a la Dune, and find moisture where you can.
Instead of preserving water, they're preserving blood.
Which is a little silly, but it's also in the warp, so who gives a shit, you know? That's the thing you got to keep in mind. You're kind of in the warp a little bit when you're on these planets because you're in the
Though,
vortex.
yeah. Though the true uh, mystery of this planet is where these wrecks come from, because they sometimes come up to the surface.
Yep.
It is said the leviathans that feed on constant rumors that feed the constant rumors of speculation regarding these wrecks are their source. It may be assumed that these leviathans are warp capable, and they drag their ships back here.
Which isn't unbelievable.
Legends speak of violent singularities in sidereal space, vast whirlpools of nothingness that drag in any craft unlucky enough to be caught in their grasp. And they end up here. It's unknown for a vicious Xenos predator, or an orc warboss, or crude shaper to find themselves floating on the currents of a sea only to wreak bloody vengeance upon the castaways until those sad native bands destroy the newcomer. In the end, there is no way to know what lurks at the center of Furia. In the crushing pressures and the swirling darkness deep beneath the calm surface, some force, power, or phenomenon collects the sad and the lost from across the galaxy and deposits their shattered, devastated shells, boiling up out of the inky black. What caused this, or to what purpose, if any, this power labors, is shrouded in the impenetrable gloom, guarded with some of the most vicious creatures to prowl the screaming vortex.
So what'd you miss, Jim? You missed my two. They're not, I don't know if they're my favorite planets, but they're up there. Asphodel and Baron. which are basically twin worlds that get really close to each other, and they're inhabited by the Kroot and the Orcs, and both of them are tainted by chaos, and it's pretty great. Waterworld Blood Edition. Yeah, that's the other really cool one we just covered is Furia, which is Waterworld, but even more depressing and dark. Because remember, there is no sunlight. It's just what light you can get from torchworks
And the other thing is
and
there's
lightning.
no land. They live on giant ships that boil up from the water.
And then at any point, a riptide can rip it apart.
And there are these leviathans, that just giant sea creatures that may be warp capable and are just taking these lost ships and depositing them here.
We also covered Crucible, which mostly has interesting daemons you can pull. It's one of those daemon battle worlds. I've actually heard of the planet, and I've
Yeah.
heard of one of the daemon princes they mentioned.
Oh, actually, go to page 93. I think there is an image of a leviathan.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, this is the thing that. Here you
It's
go.
a giant tentacled shark.
But
Have fun.
which, by the way, this actually feeds into my theory that you could actually have Stromfels as a lesser daemon of Khorne. You want to know why? His symbol is a shark. Eh? Eh?
Mhm.
You like it?
Oh, yeah, I do. The apparently also leviathans are not territorial. They're
Oh,
able to send scrap towns from hundreds of miles away and track them down. Only a scrap town that has secured ancient missile weapons has the slightest hope of surviving the attention of a leviathan.
yeah.
Occasionally, they do fight each other. The leviathans do. The victorious, though never consumes the remains of its victim, will bellow triumphantly before sinking once more into the still waters of the ocean. You know what the other thing I realized this could be? These could be sentient. This world
Sentient
could have,
kaiju.
and they worship corn.
Yeah, this could be their way of just enjoying paradise.
The enormous is a boon for any scrap town that manages to secure it, but thousands of native creatures vie for its twisted flesh, sinews like iron cables, and bones the consistency of steel, all of which sinks beneath the waters once enough of the flesh has been carved away. Oh, they're machines. They're I don't know what the fuck this thing is.
No, but there's flesh on top of it. I think these are primordial warp entities. They could also potentially be, if you think about it, they could also be leftovers from the war in heaven.
Oh,
Perhaps,
they're
perhaps originally constructions made by the Necron tier that were turned into fleshy monsters during the clash,
hmm.
or a forgotten wonderwaff of the old ones that essentially escaped into the immaterium.
Yes, that kaiju for corn. Hell yeah.
Or alternatively, again, they could have been a race that transcended into a complete group of daemon princes, actually.
Hmm.
They could have been a race of shark people that turned into all daemon princes and turned their world into a daemon world.
Possibly. So the next planet is
Or
Curse.
again, yes, they could be a case of maybe they are the what would have happened if the Men of Iron won. Like
Yeah.
they destroyed their creators and basically built giant versions of themselves.
So
You don't know. That's the thing.
yeah. So Curse originally was the planet of Serenus. It's a paradise world. It was fertile. Giant ivory towers and ornate palaces. Warfare was a sport. Everything was nice and peaceful. Then the dark age of technology happened, and they were sucked into the warp.
Yeah, that didn't. A lot of worlds got sucked into the warp. Quite a few.
For months after the Sun Ring, civilization continued to move forward as all the powers of science and technology were bent to understand the incomprehensible. So they started to learn about the warp.
Because they were in it. That's the most fucked up part. Is their planet was fine initially.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was more. Yeah. And they lost their sky. They lost their sun. They
All
believed that
communication.
All that was needed to reestablish sanity and the galaxy was to collect enough information. Trust was placed within the scientists and researchers. Yet crops began to fail. Weather patterns were disrupted. Fear began to raise up. Each faction was blaming each other. As resources became harder to procure, stockpiles of weapons were breached, and then the killing started. Engineered bioplagues, dreaded atomics, um, just the furious power just cracked the mantle of the planet, and out came lakes of blood red fire.
Yep.
Uh, Antimatter warheads shatter their moons, and yeah, they lost all reason. They surrendered themselves to the basest instincts of mankind.
If they were able to hold together for just a little bit longer, they likely could have survived.
I They were in the warp. They were fucked.
Oh god, yes, they were fucked.
No, that they this actually
But given that warp storms occasionally spit planets back out,
they were in
possibly.
a they were in a famine state.
Yeah, I don't blame them for falling apart.
Yeah, yeah. Had they to logic and reason, but I don't think they would have. I don't think that was possible. They would have destroyed themselves. So Curse is then born as it was spit into the streaming vortex.
Well, that's what I mean, because warp storms last a certain amount of time, and occasionally, a planet will get spit back out.
You just never know when.
That's the thing. In another universe, perhaps Serena might have survived at least until the Great Crusade had to purge it.
Yep. Uh, so now there's lakes of fire. There's isolated regions of jungle. There's carpets of skulls.
Oh, don't forget the part where the planet partially cracked open and you can look right into its core.
That should somehow makes it still a stable planet.
It's still not quite in reality, because here's the thing, the
Yep.
vortex is kind of in that blur between reality and complete. So, things like gravity, that's more of a suggestion. Like, it's
Yep.
there, it's kind of a rule, but you can also just say fuck it and break it whenever you want.
So despite all the destruction, there is still some of Serenus. Cadaver cadavers of ancient statues, their once serene features worn away by time and desert winds, shells of delicate towers. Um, there still is some of that glory, including depots of research stations.
Oh, don't forget the parts where entire areas are just surrounded by poison gas fog clouds from the bioweapons used.
However, you know, the natives are mutants, the
Oh
Vexed.
yeah.
Yeah, they're just mutants, so it's not going to last. High above the tormented world are the debris fields that were once its moons. So you have the adepts of Castire uh, that are basically a forge. Uh, it means the X-Ray raised elaborate force domes to surround their curved surfaces of the largest, containing fighting pits, excavated from the planet below and transported, stone by stone. The Dark Adepts maintain the life-preserving technologies that guard against the void. So, a bunch of tech priests came here and decided, you know what? Let's make this a fighting pit.
Well, I think the logic is there is a group of mutants that we can use as the testing grounds. Wasn't there something about the warp spitting out planets from the far future? Yes, that has also happened.
Yeah, that actually would be a very interesting story of like during the Great Crusade, planet comes out and it's like the Emperor's angels have returned. They're here to save us. And I wonder which legion would be the worst to meet,
Uh oh,
or
it depends on
the
who you think.
the most ironic. Actually, no, the most ironic would be pre Lorgar Contact Imperial Heralds, where they just destroy them all.
Yeah, Imperial Heralds wipe them. Another really fun one would have been the Night Lords because they're breaking every element of the legal code.
Oh, you know what actually would be interesting? Planet that disappeared during the Horus Heresy that emerges. And it's before any of them know what Horus is.
Yeah.
But the pits. So the pits of the Shattered Moons, these are, fighting pits.
Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, yes, Jim, I was actually referencing. God, was it Car? Was it called? Was it Karava? It's the Soulstorm planet.
Yeah, but that was taken away and then brought back.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like in this case, Curse could have been a scenario. Could have potentially been. We will never know because the thing about the way the Immaterium works is it also kind of is based on your emotions and feelings somewhat. So I'm just saying it could have, but it very likely wouldn't have.
So you have so in these fighting pits you have various houses that the cult Tori, which control the training of pit warriors, and you've got various exotic fighters,
Which is
including
actually
Eldar.
similar to how gladiatorial rings kind of worked, and particularly horse racing as well, because they were different colored teams.
So you've got some of the vexed. You've got basic pit brutes that are about the size of an ogrin, but lack the the refined tastes and developed intelligence of their more famous abhuman cousins. So these are dumber ogrins.
Yep, they often sport extra muscular arms coming from their backs or sides.
And these guys wield chain hammers.
Yeah,
See, Kurzian warpounds. Oh, they bring up the mutilators. So you remember the obliterators from the Chaos Space Marines, the Terminator-like guys that can that basically have all of the guns and just swap them out every turn.
yeah,
Okay, Games Workshop decided for 6th edition we're going to do that, but for melee weapons. And here's the
neat.
problem: the models were ugly as shit. They were fine cast, and this is a unit that is supposed to get into melee combat that moves 4 inches.
Oh yeah, they're slow as dog shit.
Yeah, they were discontinued by 9th edition.
Not surprising.
They're not also because you had to keep swapping different weapons. So
That's frustrating.
let's say if you're trying to kill a giant creature with power fists and you fail, you can't use the power fists. You gotta
Gotta use
swap
the
it.
dagger.
Well, actually, let's see. So they can have chain axes, chain fists, chain blades, lightning claws, power axes, power fists, power maces, or power swords. I mean, though the idea of the mutilator at least is interesting
It's an
as a
int-
concept.
I imagine they work better in this game.
Probably.
Also, again, the Vex in the Pitbirds, interesting concept for a mutant strain.
Oh, the warpounds. Apparently, they trace their origins through canine, lizard, and rhinoceros.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And there's a connection between the warpounds and the Ceresian warhounds of legend.
Essentially, they kind of, from what they're describing them as, they kind of remind me of like little baby juggernauts a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, but the next planet is Messia.
Oh, this Mad Max world. Here we go.
I
Witness
know,
me.
I know not who the mutants serve, but some fool god must love something for it to be so hard to kill. Cursed Wobane. Oh yeah, they have those massive fucking drills
Yeah,
that. Oh,
it's a toxic. It's a
oh,
toxic
that
planet.
seems fun.
Yep, it's a toxic planet known for its long days and the desperation of its Promethean miners. It has a very slow rotational speed. Each day takes over a year to complete. The only human
Yep.
habitations are on the poles because that's the only areas where twilight is found.
So you have Mechata or
Basically, the best way to describe this
Mechaton.
is Mad Max Venus.
Mechaton. Yeah. So large part of the society is based upon its system of government inheritance, and the right to own property and govern must be obtained anew every generation.
Yep.
Oh God, it's Jeffersonian.
Yes, it is.
It is once children reach the ideas of nurture and compassion are non-existent. Once children reach the age of maturity, their right, which is 15, their rite of passage consists of being exiled from their parents' homes, and there is no system of inheritance. And when the individual dies, his neighbors immediately begin fighting over his assets. Eminent domain by combat.
You literally have to murder your own parents and steal their shit.
In this case, the invisible hand of the free market is a giant fist.
I. This is amazing. I
The
love this
press,
planet.
yeah, the press gangs around the streets seeking out the indignant. They check
Indigent,
everyone.
which means the
And
lazy, the
yeah,
bums.
they check everyone for identification, killing those who resist and displaying their bodies as trophies of their skills. Those who do not have identification are immediately added to the slave population. So he deliberately provided slaves with inadequate shelter and too little food to fend off starvation, creating an incredibly volatile environment. The strongest ever sees what they need from the weakest. This culls the population so that the city need not care for the people who are incapable of caring for themselves.
Again, if you're a lazy bum, you're enslaved until you die.
This frequently is insurrection. So frequently, in fact, is one of the core principles. Each landowner maintains weapons that are far more sophisticated than available to common slaves. Um, Once a right is stamped out, there are hundreds each year. The slaveholders seize the leaders. The slaves are surrendered to the arena. Um, because they have typically demonstrated some degree of competency in a combat situation, they provide primitive weapons to exhibit their skills for the masses. The arena rewards those who manage to triumph within their tournaments, and their victors are um, not just freedom, it includes placement in one of the city's numerous mining expeditions.
Which is how a lot of citizens gain their power. Which means the dark irony is you can lead a slave rebellion, get crushed, and then still win by killing the leader of the group that crushed you after gaining power by fighting your way to get some oil.
Yep. Almost all citizens attain that rank after proving themselves in successful expeditions. The triumphant leaders are rewarded with property rights and citizenship, bartered in exchange for harvested resources. Lesser members of the expedition might hoard their shares, working towards eventually attaining citizenship through surviving additional drilling expeditions.
Yep. Uh,
Legends say,
the
legends say that the drill barons may have had more power than they do today, something the cities never pray will happen again. According to one legend, it was Magyar the Cruel that began the drilling process, but then he eventually fell prey to disease he introduced. And yet he haunts drill expeditions as a leader of a mutant horde.
Oh
There's
yeah,
Lord
basically
Ine.
Messier might have been originally like still harsh, but nowhere near as bad as it was, because to maximize profits, one of these guys decided to create
A city.
degen a viral weapon that turns you into fuel. Basically, it deconstructs you into slop that turns you into promethium. That instead created mutants, and he died from his own illness.
Another guy formed a leader of uh, drill barons in an attempt to hold Mekata. How do you pronounce that?
Mekonta.
Mekonta hostage. He did embargo the city for 4 months. It was only defeated when the city rewarded the clans with double payments if they brought Pining's head, which they did. And then the Faceless One. He claims he lived only for the wastes and attacking other clans he encountered for sustenance. Some claim he was a mutant that gained sentience, others was a former baron driven on bloody vengeance. No one has claimed to have seen him die, though, and mysterious burning wreckage indicates his obscured visage still haunts the outlands.
Low key Mad Max.
But then there's Zanok, which is the southern um, city.
By the way, before we go into that, what planet's the least interesting so far? Crucible.
Yeah,
It's a daemon battle world. Those are usually the least interesting. They're useful for finding patrons, in my experience. Like if you need a patron for your group, especially for a Khornate, not bad. But eh, daemon battle worlds are kind of lame because they're kind of the same thing over and over again.
so unlike uh, Maconta, which is anarcho-capitalist Jeffersonian
No, it's not even that.
oligarchy.
It's no. If I had to describe Mekonta, it is social Darwinist, eugenicist, ANCAP individualism with
So
strong elements of illegalism, which is a strain of anarchy which indicates that you can rob and murder motherfuckers to steal their shit.
So Zanok, has neither a slave population nor any system of central authority. Residents have full freedom to pursue their lives. But however, they have little opportunity to do so because of the hostile environment and lack of central authority.
Yep.
So everyone has full and equal rights and expected to respect one another's privileges. However, there's no one to see those rights preserved. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a bunch of
Y-
slave. I could see why. I could see it being founded by slaves from the North Pole. I could easily
Yeah.
see it, and then they just kind of hypocrited themselves.
Basically, it's a fucking block war from Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Every little community defends their own. Above ground, the vast majority of freestanding structures are little more than burned out rubble. The majority of its inhabitants live below the city's surface, a habit that dates back to shortly after the city's founding, where they find a bunch of ores, converting organic ores into promethium, making weapons. Any in time, the purifiers became one of the city's most valuable assets, and any who lived within the mines received a steady supply of air that was largely free from the planet's toxic
Oh
contaminants.
yeah, you have to pay for air, at least air that's non-contaminated.
But since it's kind of free there, yeah, there's just towns in exhausted mines.
Yep.
It's far more defensible. It has open markets. So actually, they're actually doing well off.
I mean, that's the funny thing about Zanuck that I like. It's kind of the opposite of Makanta, where the higher ups are in the shittier condition.
Yeah. Uh, and so yeah, you have your drilling expeditions that seek promethium because cities need the fuel, and in exchange for the fuel, they obviously get probably food and
If you're wondering, the
other
fuel
resources.
is legitimately needed to just survive on the planet. Essentially, you need it to run the atmospheric scrubbers. You need it to run the purification systems that allow you to find drinkable water, which is probably done by just dumping bodies and desiccating them. Let's be fair.
A- And so you bring your drill crew, to kill off the mutants, sabotage or destroy other crews, and harvest those
Not
drill
gonna
machines.
lie, this shit sounds fun.
Yeah. So the Dayside mutants. Let's see. Under the direct light of Zozon, the plant's harsh light, they shed their normal bark and become faster and agile while their brains enter a hyperactive state. These priests and scholars who have studied Messia constantly clash with these legends. Some think they are inhuman creatures from the remnants of a plague-ridden civilization. Others say that these bodies are but the leftover shells of beings whose souls have been torn asunder.
Oh, that might
Believes
mean.
them.
Oh, that's interesting. They could be actually the shattered remains of Eldar,
Another believes that they are a mighty warrior damned as followers in life so they can be transformed into a demon prince.
which
Oh,
sounds fitting.
no, it's Griffith.
Yeah.
Well, kind of.
No, no, no. If you want to, you could have that be the origin where they're those that he sacrificed to gain power.
Yeah.
You could totally put Griffith as a Daemon Prince in this setting, and it'd work.
Oh, these mutants also know how to use weapons, but they seldomly have a supply of arms at hand.
Essentially, the mutants the fun one of the Baron creating these mutants by trying to make a virus to turn them into gas. Uh, Sometimes they kind of come close to being human again. They actually sound, because of how they're solar powered, they might actually be like exothermic, where they need the heat from the sun.
And these ones move obviously in the opposite direction of the planet's rotation, because didn't you say it was right? A day is a year.
Yep.
So, but those are the day side. The night side mutants,
By the way,
they're
here's what a Nightside mutant looks like, and isn't it beautiful?
they
I
take
love
on
it.
a brief state of suspended animation. After the putrefaction, they transform into a nocturnal shape.
Yeah, they basically, this is the reason why they think they might have been turned into gas, because they essentially form a chrysalis and melt into this thing.
So they mutate whenever they're on the night side, and they become less aware of their surroundings. Their weapons are discarded during the putrefaction and ignored without thought upon restoration. They're incapable of manipulating the simplest locks, which they might use to gain entrance to a drill rig. The only thing that they have is the need to feed. So yeah, these guys change based on if it's day or night.
which I think is a neat concept.
Then you have drill nomads,
That's
that
really fucking cool.
the few who choose to actually serve upon a drill rig.
Yeah, it takes a certain mad bastard to do that since you're constantly at risk of being killed.
So daytime they need to quickly find a secure location, but nighttime um, is a longer. It's they're
Basically,
active, yeah,
during the
during the.
during dayside, you can if you're going to do a drilling expedition on the dayside, you already know where the veins of promethium ore are, and you're just trying to quickly gain as much as you can and then run out because the dayside mutants are smart enough to actually fight you. Nightside, that's when you prospect, and you gotta watch out for large hordes of the nightside mutants. They're not very smart, so you can easily lead them away, but it is still an issue since they're a lot stronger.
Alright. Then next up is Zurunt, which is our Viking world.
Ah, yeah, that's if you're wondering, Zurunt is the world of all of the Kratoses.
Yep. The throne of Baftar. According to ancient legend, a warrior who can hold onto the throne against all comers for a year and a day may be the overlord of Zurunt with the blessings of Baftar. Countless warriors have seized the throne. Those that take the throne during one of the harsh but brief winters are generally capable of holding it during that season. However, when the weather warms, the warriors inevitably turn from the notion of defense to conquest. And it makes the control of the throne more tempting. According to these myths, anyone who holds the throne is an unbeatable foe. So you could have a mission where, I'm going to take this throne. Chaos Space Marines, they drop pod onto the planet, kill everyone in the throne room, and just hold that throne until they inevitably betray each other.
Or another gigantic shitpost that you could totally do if you're like a Tzeentch warband. Steal it. Steal it and steal it. Steal it off the fucking planet.
And put a fake one there.
Yeah. Come on, doesn't that sound amazing?
Yes. Legend holds that in the wake of the battles of the Throne of Baftar, warriors may be directly subsumed to the warp. These tell tales of daemons descending upon pillars of fire to remand the bodies of the warriors into the eternal service of the Dark God.
It's almost like a twisted form of the Bretonnian rites with the Lady of the Lake,
Yeah.
sort of.
Then there's the underworld. There's the Svartlings, small humanoid creatures of darkness, more at home away from the light of the surface. And the Onir are mechanical constructs granted cognizance with the souls of those Svartlings ritually murdered.
Oh, we might be dealing with abominable intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
So the Svartlings craft these complex machines through sorcery ripped from the souls of countless slaves, anathemas the ways of
Oh, no,
Baftar.
no, I know what these are. They're basically making chaos engines, but with human souls.
Oh,
That's also
they
pretty
have.
fun.
Oh, they have 4 separate subcultures. The highest ranking are the sorcerer priests. Um.
Wait, no, these are chaos dwarves. These are
Oh.
chaos dwarves.
Oh my. Wait. Engineers represent the next highest members of the society. These are craftsmen.
Yeah, these are
With
chaos
with
dwarves.
the sorcerer priests, some claim they have sacrifices. Warriors and slaves makes up the underclass.
Yep, that's chaos
Svartling
dwarves.
creations are manufactured from ores found beneath the planet's depths.
Yep.
Um. Oh my God, you're.
The
But
only
wait,
thing they're missing
what is
is
that?
that they don't turn to stone.
What is the name for a dwarf in Norse?
Dwarves and dwarfs.
Vargir. Hmm.
I think it was like Dverfiger or something like that. I don't remember. I just know that these are fucking Dowie Zar.
Yeah, but
These
they
are
are.
these are Dowie Zar. Okay, I might not be the biggest fan of the Viking Kratos because he's kind of generic. He's kind of
Well,
generic. You're playing a Norse skin. If you want to play a Norse skin from Warhammer Fantasy, this is the planet you have them from. But these have my Dowie Zar. They're one of my favorite factions from Fantasy. Which is actually low-key why I'm not the biggest fan of some of the updates that Warhammer 40k has done. I don't dislike how they're updating the squats though.
so yeah. I
The ancestor worship being computer programs, abominable intelligence. That's pretty clever.
yeah, if I'm on this planet, they're worshipping Hashut.
Yeah, Loki, Svartling. I would low key. You could have them be what did they rename the squats when they remade them?
Votan.
I would have them be members. I would have
Oh,
them originate from the Votan. Like this might have been one of the worlds
oh,
from the heavy belts, and they got sucked in.
oh! Wow, ooh, that's something neat.
And as for how the humans got there, well, they probably came from another planet, or they were a
Yeah,
delegation from the time of the Emperor that just degenerated,
yeah. So the Zers are
or
fighters.
from the golden age of technology where you had all the abhuman races. Like that's like during that period. There you go.
Yeah. So the Zur utilize the Zurush, massive carnivorous reptiles that are about 3 meters in length and more mass than a Grox beast.
They look pretty.
So,
They look okay. They're like half Triceratops, half Iguanodon. It's pretty old Iguanodon art. I like them.
so it's Vikings riding on top of dinosaurs, fighting degenerate chaos dwarves with their robot servants.
No, with their robots powered by the screaming souls of their slaves.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh,
Yeah, this planet's great.
they do give more
Like this
more,
planet's become a bit of a sleeper hit. I fucking love it.
and they have Zur sorcerers.
No, it's even. For a vet there, I thought they gave armor to their dinosaurs. That would be even better. Oh,
No.
they do. They
Oh, they do.
do.
Oh,
Yes.
and they're prone to mutations.
Yes. This makes me very happy.
Um, we give more to the Onir.
Oh look, no, the Zur sorcerer, the
They're
god
fucking
Baftar.
dragons. They're fucking dragons.
Yeah.
They strike from deep beneath the planet's surface, leaving the rest of the tribe. They may vary in appearance. Each has a heavily armored shell, a carapace that constantly belches smoke and steam. They have dozens of limbs to burrow. Their gaping mouths incorporate a flame-based weaponry. Um, though through the dark arts, the Svartling warrior priests are able to utilize mortal
These are
souls to
how they
grant them
do the
change
changeling myths.
limited
They use the Zur
limited
sorcerers
sentience.
for them. Holy shit.
Brass plating. Svartling warrior. These sentients will within depths of Zert. Physically, they're humanoid in structure but smaller than humans. Their reduced stature is partly due to a marked hunch on their upper back, extends to the top of their heads.
Yep.
Their skin is a dark gray, similar to the natural granite. Lidless, huge red eyes dominate their bald heads.
They're still Dawizar as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, only a few are considered to be warriors. They strive to strike from stealth and exploit technological advantages.
Of their dark god, so it's a shit.
Um, what are they armed with?
If you want, since they're also hunched and kind of like weird and kind of mad scientists, their gods are Hashut and the Great Horned Rat. They worship both. Fuck it. Fuck it.
When Warhammer gets metal as fuck.
Oh, I love this planet now. I'm
Yeah.
very happy. I like the Svartlings. They're pretty fun.
Next up is the War Moons of
Massive
Talek.
mechanical terrors. They're
Yeah.
fucking giant robots. Beautiful. And it constantly belches smoke and steam. Oh my god.
It's more like a worm, though. But yeah. So the
So
next
good.
is the War Moons of Talax,
This could
orbiting
be interesting or it could
yeah,
suck.
a reddish-purple dwarf star.
Warp do what warp do.
So when Slanesh was born, Talax's two suns collided as the system fell into a swirling tide. Of the 8 planets, none survived intact. 3 were immolated, 1 flew out of orbit, and the remaining 4 were dragged into the vortex.
Yep.
So the planets do not require the heat of a star to survive, relying on the thermal output of its own core. The sorcerers have tried to obtain knowledge of how this is fucking possible, as well as how to duplicate it, but all their incursions are met with disaster or capture. Moons are rich in minerals. Talax has a martial history that few other cultures can match. And let's Chodun is the largest of the three moons and the most dark in appearance, is heavily mined, and is a planet of shaman smiths. Little vegetation. With water supply scarce, they have a stranglehold on the majority of the precious resources, driving each mining forge into desperate self-sufficiency. Each forge uses creations they've captured for the favor of the gigantic um, Daemon Engine Skull Reaper, the victor forcing other forges to craft its superior design. Oh, a Daemon Engine rules this planet.
Not bad. I feel like the
Yeah,
person who did this failed sci-fi forever. Like the only thing that allows this to kind of make sense is it's the warp, so who gives a shit?
yep.
But like the way they explained it was dog shit. This is a dog shit explanation for something that is really cool.
So they sacrifice in the name of their god Gorgeth. Elder, or Nikuti, um, in the Talaxi tongue would be a death world in the Imperium, but it's merely his hunting ground, the hunting ground of Gorgeth. Its dense forests boasts voracious creatures, and the Talax test themselves against this world.
So are the Telex like people or
They're the survivors.
okay?
As it says, the Bao clans of Talax are our first people living off the harsh landscape of the three moons and their devotion to their blood god. Um,
Okay.
they maintain cultural center. They have large permanent signs for Gorgeth. They have these settlements are inter-clan gatherings. Um, they have smelting and metalworking. They have a process to toughen the hides from the massive creatures of the Makuti and other smaller beasts. They worship Gorgath as a bare-chested warrior king, wearing an animal skull for a helm and carrying both a hammer and an axe. He reveres him as a hunter and a warrior.
Neat interpretation of Khorne. I'm gonna be honest, this planet's not as interesting.
I mean, after the high of Chaos Dwarf Skavens.
After the high of Chaos Dwarfs existing again.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget also the cool Water World planet and fucking Mad Max World. This is kind of limp by comparison.
But there's the
Also, total failure to explain, like, the way they explained how these planets got here were so dog shit. That's the biggest problem.
Oh, I think so. It's a corn culture that is stable. I think that's
It's
that's
not
the
only
selling
stable but
point.
surprisingly compassionate to their elders and those who can't fight for
Yep,
themselves.
from
They're
birth until
they're
yeah.
low key showing the aspects of Khorne that are often neglected. This is something that Warhammer Fantasy was much better at showing. Basically,
Uh,
Khorne, despite being the bloody-handed god of war, the lord of murder, the guy who wants you to just kill as many motherfuckers as you can, is also again, as I mentioned, a sort of justice god. He hates those that are been wronged. He
but
hates those who have wronged others
there
because that's
is
tricksy.
yeah, there is the Incarminata. Every 8 cycles around Talax, the skies turn pure red instead of the dark purple hue. It
By the
is the
way,
holy time of
this is how
Gorgat.
you do. This is how you do a planet like Chalt. Take
Uh,
fucking notes,
yeah,
Derek.
but their behavior changes with the color of the sky. All three moons, fresh water turns red as blood, and the surface becomes noticeably warmer as though the cores burn hotter. Tempers flare among their people. Beasts become more aggressive and territorial. All-out warf. There's clan disputes. All-out warfare, which saw the eradication of 5 clans in one case. This unnatural selection acts to weed out those unfit to continue or too weak to answer the bloodthirsty call of Gorgeth.
And now you know
The
why.
fort.
And now you know why they keep those that are weak and can't defend themselves, just for more blood.
Yep. The forgers mobilize their latest creations and head to the Island of Dust, to home of the mechanical avatar of Gorgeth known as the Skull Reaper. These constructs battle each other until one remains to challenge the Daemon Engine Lord. None have survived, but the Skull Reaper has chosen which of these constructs is worthy of Gorgoth in its continued existence. This allows them to create, I guess, different versions of Khornate Daemon Engines, the Brass Scorpion, the Blood Slaughterer. Um, and the forges that lose must sacrifice a shaman apprentice as a tribute. Akuti's wildlife becomes more aggressive and territorial. Reavers protect their sites with a blade and firearm. Jakuto uses the Encarminata to change leadership and completes rites of passage for their people. So, basically, yeah, it's nice and peaceful until every 8 cycles.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest in this planet, to be honest.
So this has Daemon engines in it as well.
Like, it's an interesting
Defilers.
tribe, but it's not really appealing to me. The Daemon engines are pretty neat, though.
Oh, they bring up a Doom Blaster
Yep.
and a Skull. Yep,
Daemon
there's
engine
the.
traits. Aortic Rage. Coordinate Daemon engines are attracted to the scent and spillage of blood. If blood has already been spilled within 100 meters of it, it has to pass a willpower test, or it will move to engage the closest bleeding target.
Wait, Jimmy brought up an interesting idea. Mesoamerican Chaos.
Mesoamerican Chaos would actually have been a lot better, I think.
But you know that thing with Coyote and Crow, we had the Incan. Was it the Incan Sun Dragons?
No. You're thinking of the Incan floating nuclear sun temples. For the Aztecs, we were going with like the equivalent of like the Aztec Mafia, which basically did like horrible blood rituals.
Oh, that would be interesting. It's a criminal city that is kept afloat because of the crime. You know, the you're forced to pay tribute, and in terms of the tribute, which is in blood, you get better offerings.
It depending on how much blood you shed, with hearts being the highest value.
Mhm. Yeah, and that is about it. And
There is the
then,
adventure hook, but we don't
but
usually like to read those.
yeah, it is on Messia though.
By the way, if you're wondering, here are what all of the Daemon engines look like. You got giant robotic crab. You have
Well,
giant
that's
robotic spider.
so you got the well, no, you have the Defiler, which is actually in the Warhammer 40k game. Uh, the Blood Slaughterer is a Forge World one that they've made, as well as the Brass Scorpion.
Oh no, it's supposed to be a giant flea. That's even creepier. I like it.
Yeah.
Brass
Um,
scorpion's really cool.
yep. The Doom Blaster and I don't know if that was like a apocalypse thing.
I think it was. It never really sold well. That's why it's rare.
Yes. Oh, it is a giant tank with like 4 mortars on top of it.
Yep.
And the Skull Reaper is slightly larger than a Warhound Titan, but it resembles a Bloodthirster. One arm houses a turbo melt-a-gun,
Pretty
the
cool.
other is a massive chain axe.
Also pretty cool.
So of course no one's able to kill it. It's a fucking Titan.
So again, if you're wondering, I'm not really a big fan of this planet, but that's really just because it comes after some really cool fucking planets. It's actually still pretty decent. It's just it pales in comparison.
And
Is that a
the
corn themed batleth? Yes, it is.
that no, I thought that's just an axe.
Yeah, Kapla. Kapla. No, the one above it. The little emblem, the Khorne emblem looks like a batleth.
Oh. Oh, that yeah, I see it.
Yep. And that's the adventure hook, Red Dawn Rising, which takes place on Messier, and that is all we're going to talk about on that one.
Yeah, it's just getting late though,
It's
but
getting late, and on top of that, I don't want to spoil everything.
this was quite fun.
Yeah, Loki, this was a really fun book. I'm really glad that we actually got to cover this one, especially after the bullshit that was Princess the Hopeful. Holy shit.
Again, yeah, Corn, while it is simplistic, again, some really fun stuff you can have
I would say
with
Khorne had the most consistently good planets. Like the Tome of Blood had the most consistently good planet descriptions and stuff that was available for it.
because it is all about killing, but there are so many ways you can
Oh
dump
yeah,
in
there's
the 41st
creativity, like
millennium.
the Kroot and Orc Wars, where you can actually, if you wanted to, now because of this book, you could totally play an orc, a chaos worshipping orc in Black Crusade because of this.
The Red Wa.
You totally could. You could also play a Kroot. The Mad Max setting is one of the ones that I low-key think would be very fun.
The Mad Max one. Honestly, the one for actually that last planet, uh, the Talax one, it could be fun if
There's
you're trying to
potential.
hunt for Daemon engines. Like you're basically maybe you could trick them into creating a massive daemon engine and try to destroy the other one. But it turns out you're Slaaneshi guys, so you're all just, you know, tricking
Also,
them.
stealing the throne of the Vikings sounds really funny.
And let's not
Um,
forget that they technically introduced Chaos Dwarves.
yes, they do. All in all, I would probably say I think Tome of Decay was the better of the book. I think Tome of Decay was a better book than this one. I would
Yeah,
say this one is more consistently good in some respects. Like I said, the planet descriptions. There's really only one that I don't really like that much, and that's just because it's a Daemon War world. Those are usually the least interesting as a result. But I would say Tome of Decay was probably better. I think I liked this one better than Tome of Excess, though.
yeah. Though we do have one more.
We do got one more. We
The
definitely got one more.
Tome of Fate.
Tome of Fate. And on top of that, I have to at some point build up the courage to show you guys Genius the Transgression.
If we
Because
can
I'm gonna be
find.
real, I didn't expect fucking Princess the Hopeful to suck that bad. Then again, I also didn't expect there to be 4 fucking iterations of that book.
So hopefully we can find probably the best version of Genius.
I'll make a
Uh,
point to actually read the first 50 pages next time so that we don't get fuddy whackered by the shit version.
if you guys want to help out, you can always go to our Discord.
Yep, we got a Discord. Feel free to hop on. Also, like I said, if you want to actually play Black Crusade, and you only have the core book, get these. Get these. They're really good supplements. I have actually linked the RPGDriveThru.net link to the PDF version, mainly because this is an out of print book. You can also get them on a variety of secondhand selling sites. Dragon's Trove is one, I believe. If you want a more physical copy from actually Fantasy Flight, the rights kind of shifted over because again, Fantasy Flight got all of its books reshuffled in the big redo.
And well,
So yeah,
good night, everyone. And remember, blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne.
and don't skip leg day or you'll be stuck on a big fucking chair like that dog guy. I don't even think he's human. I think he's some sort of animal.